The City Planning Commission has established certain rules governing the procedures to be followed at public hearings. Before speaking, each person shall give their name, address, and state whom he or she is representing. Proponents for the proposal will speak for a period of 10 minutes. Each speaker shall have a maximum of 2 minutes. Opponents or all other interested parties shall speak for a period of 15 minutes. Each speaker shall be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Proponents will be allowed a period of 6 minutes for rebuttal. Each speaker shall be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Opponents will not be allowed to rebut. No material, written matter, photographs, maps, etc. will be accepted by the commission or its staff at any time during the public hearing.
Sir?
This procedure shall be followed except at such times when the presiding officer shall, with the approval of the commission members present, extend such time. All parliamentary procedures shall be followed, including reverence of argument, recognition of speaker, and absolute prohibition of applause. All comments made by proponents and opponents shall be addressed to the chair or a specific member of the commission. These hearings are recorded and broadcast on public access TV. Audio tapes and all relevant public records are available in the City Planning Office and may also be available on the city's website at www.nola.gov. Before our first zoning docket matter, I would like to announce that the City Planning Commission has adopted special rules in reference to zoning docket 003-18, Council Motion M17552. The rules will be changing that only a speaker can individuals concede time for a maximum of 20 minutes. In addition to that, any rebuttal from the opposite side will only be allowed to speak for 20 minutes. Zoning docket 10717.
Zoning docket 10717 is a request by Riverside multi-family residential dwelling in an MU2 high-intensity mixed-use district in an RIB Riverfront Design Overlay District, and the rescission of ordinance numbers 9,367 and 10,144 for lots 1 through 8, 13 through 18, 20B, and part lots 13, 14, and 19 on Square 217, Lot A1 or A, in the 5th Municipal District, bounded by Brooklyn Avenue, Socrates, DeArmas Streets, and the Mississippi River Protection Levee and River Street. The municipal addresses are 200 to 240 Lamarck Street, 1239 Brooklyn Avenue, and 1316 River Street. The applicant proposes the construction of a mixed-use development on an approximately 3.4-acre site adjacent to the Mississippi River levee between DeArmas and Socrates Streets. The site, which consists of 3 lots and 2 squares, is currently vacant of any structures. The applicant proposes to develop the 3 lots with a site area of approximately 134,177 square feet, with 4 outer connected 8-story buildings. The proposal includes 5 commercial areas on the ground floor, while residential units would be located on levels 2 through 8. The applicant proposes to feature design components in the development that would enable the bonus height and density provided for in the RIB Riverfront Overlay District. With an increase in buildable area, the applicant is proposing to construct a total of 354 dwelling units, which includes 35 units provided at the 80% area median income level and a building height of 81 feet 8 inches. This proposal was deferred at the November 14th and December 12th, 2017 City Planning Commission meetings to allow the developer additional time to meet with the site's neighbors, make changes to the building and site design based on comments made by the DAC and PAC committees, neighborhood residents, and also obtain the necessary documentation and approvals for the applicant's proposed use of public rights-of-way. At the January 9th, 2018 CPC meeting, the applicant proposed an additional modification to the plans, which included design changes and an adjustment in the unit and parking counts, and an addition of the on-site plaza for public access on the levee side of the site. The applicant intends to continue to pursue the approvals for the use of Lamarck Street, but the on-site plaza is intended to satisfy the requirements. After lengthy discussion between commission members, members of the community, and the applicant requested the proposal be deferred to this meeting. The commission unanimously agreed to offer deferral, passed a motion specifying that the Director of Safety Permits make a determination as to whether or not the plaza meets the requirements. The Director of Safety and Permits on January 29th met the CPC staff and made a determination, but a prior determination by the Director stated that the public plaza must be located on private property to be considered for one of the riverfront overlays eligibility requirements for the height and density bonus. The current proposed location would be on the applicant's property, which resolves the previous concern. The Director of Safety and Permits stated that in order for the applicant to comply with the requirement that the public plaza provide direct visual access to the riverfront, the applicant must provide a pedestrian connection from DeArmas Street to both the public plaza and a connection to the riverfront path. The staff believes the incorporation of the proposed mixed-use development at this site will provide additional housing units, including affordable housing units, to an area of the city that is currently underutilized and is in close proximity to employment sectors, including the CBD, Algiers Point, Uptown, and the Blue Parade. The requirement to provide an on-site open public space and plaza will offer area residents an opportunity to access and enjoy the Mississippi River, while people walking or biking along the levee will also have access to the public space. The development would generate an increase in traffic as a result of the conversion of the site's previous use as low-intensity industrial to a residential development with more than 20,000 square feet of commercial space. The staff believes the addition of the proposed commercial spaces will provide employment opportunities to area residents and could also encourage more economic development in the area. For these reasons, the staff is supportive of the request and recommends approval subject to 36 provisos. Staff would like to note that there are 2 changes to the provisos since the release of this report. The staff recommends omitting proviso number 13, which was included prior to receiving the Director of Safety and Permits interpretation. And also there was a proviso that was in the text of the report but did not get included in the list of provisos. And that proviso says, the applicant shall secure the appropriate rights to utilize city property in connection with any and all encroachments in accordance with the requirements of the Department of Property Management, Office of Real Estate and Records. Once again, the staff recommends approval subject to 36 provisos.
Thank you for that. Before we have the first speaker, that we have a maximum of 10 minutes. Each speaker could be respectful of all speakers. So if you're holding a sign right now, please have a seat. So I received 15 cards in favor of, and speaking in favor of this project. You may come in any order as long as you don't use more than 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mike Sherman, 800 Barone, Land Use Council on behalf of the project. I want to first begin by thanking staff for their favorable recommendation. It was an incredibly thoughtful and detailed report. We appreciate staff's support. We are not going to duplicate our comments from last month. We appreciate the Commission very thoughtfully listening to a very lengthy discussion. So today I'll ask the speakers here in support to only add new information. I want to recap just one very important point. What brings us before you today is a density bonus, and the purpose of that density bonus is to achieve something that hasn't been tried in the city of New Orleans in this robust a fashion, which is 35 unsubsidized, non-tax credit affordable housing units as part of this high-quality mixed-use development. We're very proud of that. The unresolved issue from last month was a public park on private property. We have submitted updated plans to reflect that amenity. It has been deemed satisfactory by Safety and Permits. With that, I look forward to answering questions during the rebuttal, and we thank you for your consideration and ask for your favorable recommendation.
Angela O'Byrne.
Hello, can you hear me? Angela O'Byrne, 2525 Burgundy Street. My firm, Perez, is the architectural firm on this project. We have designed within the city planning guidelines, the master plan, the zoning ordinance with the riverfront overlay, and designed in accordance with all of these. We have tried to be as sensitive as possible to the neighborhood surrounding the property by breaking the project up into 4 separate buildings in order to reduce the impact of the massing. This is costing more because it's requiring more elevator cores and existing stairs. We also hid the parking from the street, buried it deep inside the project at great expense in order to remove the parking and keep it from becoming visually offensive or an eyesore. The trash collection services and loading are all happening inside the building, so it's also hidden from the neighborhood. I won't repeat all the things that I said at the last hearing, so thank you so much for considering this, and we respectfully request that you approve the project as it's designed now. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brenda Canada, 210 Barone Street. I'm new to this project. I'm going to be working as a retail consultant, and I understand that one of the things that neighborhood retail is important all over the city of New Orleans, and I'm going to be working diligently to bring a drugstore, a grocery store, and other retail restaurants and things that will satisfy the neighborhood needs and make this a local area that everyone can be proud of.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Gerald Baptiste with Eagle Eye Resources. We will be a firm here hired to help out with design and the ongoing, I guess you can say, work that will be required to maintain this facility. We are a design build development firm here, local from the city of New Orleans. And we wanted to come here and make an impact. And as a young millennial moving back here, and being from Algiers, I always wanted somewhere I could come back to and have a facility that would be conducive to my style of living that adapts to millennials. And unfortunately, I have to live on the East Bank because where I'm from doesn't possess anything like this. So I am in support of this because it is forward thinking. It will improve recruiting and keeping talent in our geographical location of Algiers. And like I said, Eagle Eye Resources is in full support of this project. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Corey Williams, owner at 917 Villette Street. Corey Williams.
Excuse me. We won't have any outbursts from the audience. Thank you so much.
Corey Williams, the owner at 917 Villette Street, and I'm here to support this. I speak for myself and other fellow millennials who, get encouraged by new development in the city of New Orleans. There's plenty of new development going on throughout the downtown areas, providing a certain style of living and amenities that you can't get in areas like Algiers. I spent a lot of time in Algiers, maybe since about 2000. And I would like to reside in Algiers for the ongoing of my life. Raise kids there. So I'm just in full support of this project. I think it will give an opportunity for us to retain millennials in our city. I argue with my friends a lot. A lot of my friends have fled the city because they see a ceiling in New Orleans. Not seeing any new development spurring in areas outside of downtown. So I think it's a great opportunity to start retaining our talent in the city, start attracting some Fortune 500 companies. That's all I have for you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jarrell Butler, 803 Belleville. I am the owner of Millennial Financial Solutions, a virtual financial planning firm for millennials as well as people of color. As some people have just stated, I am also in lifelong Algiers resident who, unfortunately has had to live in different cities to progress my career because of the lack of economic development within New Orleans. I love New Orleans so much that I would love to see, some of the great ideas and great projects that have come to the table, but have so often got shot down. And I noticed from afar when I was living in other cities how many great projects we've had on the table that have not, reached the final leg. So I'm here in support of this project. I actually just finished speaking at Clark Atlanta University this morning, caught a flight, just got here just so I can speak at this meeting. So that's how important this is to me in terms of, bringing a great energy back, bringing development into the city where everybody wins. So I am in full support of this project as well as my company is as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Stevenson. I live at 45 Kings Canyon. I've been a resident of Algiers for 34 years, and I'm very excited about this project because I see that there's going to be some commercial development, and I feel like we really need to have more of that in our area. I love going to Algiers, but there's very little to choose from. I end up going to Gretna, have to cross the river to come over here whenever I want to go to restaurants or want to go to different businesses. And I feel like this project actually presents an opportunity for expanding that. We will have a larger tax base, which we also need. This property has been vacant for the whole time that I've lived in Algiers, and so I'm very much for the project. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Patrick Carter. I'm a lifelong resident of Algiers. I'm not a millennial, Generation X, so I'm 37. So I come from a different standpoint. So I've seen the neighborhood change over 3 or 4 different times, but I look forward to a little bit of change in the area and some different opportunities. And by bringing something like that to the area, even like some of the smaller mom and pop businesses will grow. There's opportunities for other development within the community, not just big corporations and companies coming in, but also like local businesses can get started and do the thing also. So I'm in favor for change.
A minute and 30 seconds is left. I'm going to ask that each speaker actually speak into the mic so that everyone can hear you.
How you doing? My name is Trevor Young. I'm the owner of 801 Belleville. I'm also a local business owner. I own a food truck in this city. I was also the president of the New Orleans Food Truck Coalition, and I'm in support of this project because I have multiple properties in this area, and I have tenants that always complain to me about being in that area, that there's not much commercial property or businesses. They're always heading to the East Bank or to Gretna, and they would like to see some new development, new businesses. And also myself being a business owner, I would like to do business in Algiers, but there's currently not much options or choices for places to do business in that area. So I'm in full support of this project. Thank you.
40 seconds.
Good afternoon. My name is Cornelius Lucas.
Speaking to the mic. The middle mic. Which one?
Oh, good afternoon. My name is Cornelius Lucas. I graduated from Edmond Carr High School. I'm a fellow Algiers native, and I'm also a professional athlete for the LA Los Angeles Rams. Been around the world twice, been around the country 4 or 5 times, and I feel as though it's time to bring innovative ingenuity to Algiers. It's time to bring opportunity to Algiers. It's time to...
Thank you. Now we will hear from the opposition.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to come to stand up for our community. Might I say quickly that quite impressive folks coming in and speaking for us. Many of them we've never seen until this time in support of this project. All the community things and efforts that we've done throughout the years and throughout the year, but so mote it be. But again, we are not against development. We know development is essential for a city, a community to continue to grow. It's this development that we have a problem with. It just doesn't fit. Too many people in such a small area. And some of the things that these folks are saying that they want, we want those things too. And we've been fighting and working with folks to try to get those things. But with that being said, I want to read into the record a statement from Sitting Council Lady Randall. She said that the developers for the proposed project in Old Algiers Riverfront presented their plans at a community meeting. As presented, the proposed mixed-use development in Riverview would result in about 400 units in a building about 95.5 feet high. I will not support this project. The neighborhood does not support it, and I share their concerns. I have been a strong proponent of a reasonable neighborhood-sensitive development. This project goes against the values and standards that I use in evaluating developments presented to my office. I stand with the residents of Riverview in opposition to this project, and I will actively work to prevent it from moving forward. That's the comments of Sitting Council Lady Ramsey. I also have a statement to read into the record from Council Lady-elect Christian Palmer. Reading into record for Council Member Christian Palmer Gilson, Christian Gilson Palmer, a resident and business owner of the neighborhood in which the proposed design is located. Resident at 222 Billette and business at 1039 Taft.
That concludes your time. Thank you so much.
I think some folks have.
That concludes your time. Next speaker. Then, before the next speaker speaks, please state your name and address for the record.
Well, can I ask a question? I won't be able to use the time that's been awarded to me.
You had a maximum of 2 minutes to speak.
Robert Booms, I'm the immediate past president of the Algiers Point Association, and as Alex was trying to say, he did get a letter from Council Member Palmer, who also opposes this project. The Algiers Point Association continues to oppose this project. It's only a stone's throw from the Algiers Point neighborhood. It would set a bad precedent for projects in the overlay zone in our neighborhood. We're all part of the old Algiers neighborhood, which is enjoying a revival with home restorations and infill of new homes. If we are to have apartment buildings along the river, they should complement the neighborhood and not like a sore thumb. The project is very unattractive when viewed from the riverfront neighborhood and even more unattractive when viewed from across the river. The buildings appear as a wall dividing the neighborhood from the river. The project does not invite neighborhood residents to access the river. They can already get up there with a walk to a bike trail. Most importantly, the recently proposed improvements on Mark Street and behind one of the buildings do not offer any amenities that are likely to attract nearby residents. The additional housing units are not for old Algiers, but for residents from elsewhere and hopefully not for tourists. This developer seeks a very significant variance in the number of apartments, 186 more than is permitted, 186, and yet does not offer any significant benefits to the old Algiers neighborhood. Improvements that merit a bonus to a developer must be located on its own property. Only the pocket park behind one of the buildings is on the developer's property, where it cannot be seen. The other improvements do not count for a bonus because they are on Lamarck Street, which continues to be a public street. Arrangements for the paving of Brooklyn Street and addressing the active railroad track in front of the project have not been resolved. The developer does not own the 2 lots along Brooklyn. Meets all the provisions the CP staff has proposed. The project does not merit a bonus for the requested variance. We request that the variance be denied.
Thank you. Please hold all applause. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Radu Blatgelas at 337 Alex Street in Algiers Point. I appreciate the work done by both the developer and the City Planning Commission. However, I'm here to correct a few facts in the City Planning Commission's reports. I believe that one of the 3 requirements for the waiver for density, which is the public visual access, is not satisfied. There are 2 plazas. There is one between the building and the levee that doesn't provide any visual access. And then there's the one that was in discussion before with the Director of Safety and Permits, and that is a public street. That public street might or might not be leased by the developer, even if there's a proviso that requests that. It would be the same as if I went to get a permit and I said the setback requirements would be satisfied by the next door property that I might buy in the future. nobody will give me a permit for that. So unless the lease is done before city planning approval, that street does not satisfy that requirement either. And the last thing I want to point out is that electric vehicle owners are charged $100 a year for a 2-inch by 4-inch post on public property. That is a lease price, a yearly lease price. I would like to request that any other lease of public property that provides a public benefit equivalent to electric cars be charged at the same rate. That rate, if you do the math, is $12.50 per square inch. The street in question is 70 feet by 250 feet. That is 2.52 million square inches, which results in a $31.5 million a year of lease price if you were to apply the same standard. But of course, the city could go the other way and apply the standard used on South Street, which is given away to a private entity for $0, and then in turn go and lease it to the state for $1 million a year. So
Thank you. That concludes your time.
You should apply a fair standard to this. Thank you. 31.5 million.
Next speaker, please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. I am Eurydice Bush Harrison. I reside at 531 Atlantic Avenue. I also own property at 1228, 1230, 1232, 1234 Tash Street, as well as 512 and 514 Socrates Street. I'm also a millennial parent of 2 college-educated millennials who have both relocated to Algiers. We are against the project for many reasons. The main reason is a tremendous negative impact this project will have on our community. We are a bedroom community. Many of our residents are senior citizens who are now just getting to enjoy the fruits of their labor. We do not need this complex or the 35 units proposed in our neighborhood. In addition, we conducted a poll on Nextdoor, love it or hate it, and 72% of the respondents said that they were against this project. And finally, we'd like to know, where are these people coming from? If you're gonna have 350 units times 2 people per unit, that's over 700 people. If each person has a vehicle, that's over 1,400 cars in the neighborhood. Our infrastructure cannot support this, and we ask that you seriously consider not approving this and stressing our limited infrastructure and putting stress on our residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Connie Burks. I live at 928 Opelousas. I'm in opposition to this project. I was in Algiers in 2004 when they pulled down Big Whitney in the Fisher Project, and I was also there in 2013. And when the Fisher Project came up, the whole thing was touted as beautiful mixed income housing that would improve the neighborhood, and immediately it fell into neglect. All I can say is this project looks alarmingly like the Fisher Project. It will not improve the quality of the neighborhood. I can see that it's falling into neglect, and it will be another demolition down the 30 years down the road, and in the meantime, very negatively impacting the quality of life in both Riverview and Algiers Point. Please do not approve this project. Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you for your service down through the years. My name is Johnny Johnson III. I'm pastor of First Mission Baptist Church in Algiers, located on Lamarck Street, both 26 Lamarck Street. And I'm a lifelong native of Algiers, so much so I can tell you about the playground that was right adjacent to this property that we're talking about right now. When the planning commission way back took the property from us, and we didn't have a playground to play with. And we had to go to McDonald's and play on the outside of the fence. So please don't break our heart again. We had bitterness down through the years as a teenager. I'm talking about back in the 50s. I'm 81, by the way. And but we prayed and got over that point. So please don't disappoint us this time. As pastor of First Mission Baptist Church, the church was established in 1865 when Joe McDonald gave us the land. We've been in that same spot all that time. I was married there in 1959. I was baptized in 1951. I'm pastor there for 25 years. In fact, today is my anniversary. I've been pastor of First Mission for 25 years today. I'm going to tell the church when I go back. Look, we like our community. We know we're not downtown New Orleans, and we don't want to be downtown New Orleans. We want to be Algiers. Look, putting a large number of people in a small area is automatically problematic. We have been down that road before. Fisher Housing projects all over this city. Look out this window, we can see that they tore down a building complex where they had multiple people in such a small area, and we hold that as evidence that we don't need the multiple people that you want to put in that small area. So please, just don't approve this skyscraping looking type buildings. Please protect our community. We know you have a terrific responsibility as plan commissioners, but please protect our community. There is something better and more important than money. Money is important, but it's not
that. That concludes your time. Thank you.
Sorry, a little short here. But I just want to say, as a millennial, I listened to some of the people who got up here and said that they're for this. None of them live in the area. They may have grown up in Algiers, but they didn't grow up in Riverview. I grew up in Riverview, left to go to school, and came back to make a difference in the community there and see there. I'm involved in all kinds of community organizations, and I work in the area. I mean, if there are food trucks, they blatantly lie. There are food trucks in the area over there. There are coffee shops. There is development there. There's Federal City where places are sitting empty, waiting for people to come in there. If they want to do something, come and look at some of the spaces we already have to try to improve the community. We need to stop having people come from out of state and dangle carrots in front of people's faces to say, here, let me give you a little something, a little money, and we're going to keep robbing the city. People who are away, who don't care, who want to come in here, party, who have no investment in the city, and that's what that's for. So you can sit there, have people who want to come here, go to the French Quarter, party, and leave, so they can.
My name is Brian Washington. I own multiple properties in the neighborhood, and my family owns property in the neighborhood. I've been in that community for over 30 years now. I've been active in that community for over 30 years. And this is just not a good development, y'all. We talk about, I've heard a lot of people talk about the view. Our association was established back in '93, and it was named Algiers Riverview for all the obvious reasons. If this development is allowed, we will lose our view. That's very, very important to us. We're talking about density, as has been said. I have not seen any of these individuals involved in our community. We want to be left to live with strongly recommending this commission to oppose this project as is, and we appreciate you giving us attention. Thank you.
Thank you. There's time for one more speaker.
Hi, my name is Deborah Harrison Jones. I turned 64 on yesterday.
Please state your address for the record.
1125 LaBeouf Street in Algiers. I turned 64 on yesterday, and I've been residing in Algiers Riverview all of my life. And the reason why I'm passionate about this project not going forward is you're going to take away the historical area of this community. We're considered historical. We don't need stacks, and that's what I call the projects. Because when you look at General de Gaulle, you look at Higgins Gate, people wanted housing. The government and private owners gave them housing. The density was so bad. The people who bought it out became less interested. This is what I see coming forward if you approve this project. I'm asking you wholeheartedly to please consider that we don't want Riverview and Old Algiers changing its charm, because people want to come here, but they want to come here and throw their backs to the rest of the residents here, and we can't tolerate it. It's not acceptable to us. I'm an older woman with children that are millennials, and they love where they live. They're not fleeing here. They do find jobs here. They work here, and they're honest citizens. And I want my kids to stay in a place where they grew up and they put their money neighbors' view of what we know is a beautiful city called New Orleans, and we're the best bank of New Orleans, and we want to keep it that way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That ends the time for the opponents. That ends the time for the opponents.
Commissioners, Mike Sherman again on behalf of the applicant will be very brief. 3 key points. One, we heard the community, we took that away, so this project is proceeding at the height allowed under the basic zoning. 2, there was a lot said about public housing or low-income housing. Those are very important. Are for people at 80% in addition to the 300 anytime, ever. And finally, great community led by a great leader in Mr. Dunn. And finally, great community led by a great leader in Mr. Dunn. And I'm committed to the commission and to Mr. Dunn publicly ask for your support on this zoning matter so we can proceed with this development.
Any questions from any commissioners? Fellow commissioners?
I was going to ask council a question. One of the key parts of any report that I read is why the City Planning Commission is charged with making a decision why it comes before us. And since there is a formulaic check the box sort of list that they've gone through to provide the public amenity for the bonuses, I'd like to know, I guess, what other factors are at our discretion for this decision, just for discussion purposes.
It's a conditional use application in addition to the height bonus.
Opposition to particular ventures, and we respect and understand some of that opposition. In this particular case, we're asked to look at a development that, for all intents and purposes, fits into what is the requirement of the Riverfront Design Overlay District, that also provides some sort of housing to citizens in need, that is being built on a vacant piece of land that requires no demolition of existing structures, and that very honestly has, in my opinion, access points that lessen the severity of the traffic on the neighborhood. For example, I would imagine that most people who would live here, if this development takes place, would be taking the boulevard that does not take them necessarily through the neighborhood to get there. A lot of consideration has gone in because the community has been very vigilant and has been very, very active relative to seeing some changes take place, and the developer has made some changes. I'd like to add a personal point. Obviously, you can potentially hear where I'm going on this particular suggestion. But when I was the head of economic development for the city of New Orleans, there was a terrible looking building on Carrollton at Bayou St. John. It was the American Can Building. And significant public and private resources were put into that development against many of the comments of members of the community who felt that the Bedlam community that they had come to know was going to be negatively impacted. Sometimes there are projects that can be catalysts for significant development, as American Can was for all of Mid-City. I think that this particular project, despite the opposition, and I know some of the people who are opposed, and I respect your opposition, if it turns out that it doesn't get approved on a council level, that becomes a little bit more political than the decision that we have to make. I'm asking the members of the commission to support the recommendation of staff relative to approval of this project, with an understanding that I identify with and understand the concerns of neighborhoods when they see developments taking place that haven't taken place before, and in areas where there hasn't been this similar sort of development. I view this as an very hopeful that the development of the commercial will provide services and resources to the citizens who live in that area who are very deserving as such, and that if this project does, we work with the developer to work with the community to maybe have some of those businesses that are going to be in that particular development. What we as a city planning commission view. And with that in mind, with respect to opposition, I ask you. And with that in mind, with respect to opposition, I ask for approval of zoning docket 10717.
Audience, the public hearing portion has been closed. There's a motion by Commissioner Green for approval of this document. Is there a second? Commissioner Hughes has second. Commissioners Green motion for a purpose of discussion.
So I'll open the discussion up. I did not second. I would have for purposes of discussion, but I don't intend to support the motion. I am looking at the standards here, and I appreciate the staff's report, but I'm not sure that this development, as we see it, is going to, as the residents have stated, be compatible with the character and integrity of the neighborhood as it is right now, and welfare of the neighborhood as it is already. So I don't intend to support the motion or the development as it is put forth today.
So I'm going to echo what Commissioner Brown, and the basis is that and integrity of the adjacent development.
If you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
To the council, because there are
for either block face between intersecting streets and a cap on the total number of BC district. The intent of the proposed text amendment is to address the density of adult live performance venues along the 7 blocks of. In 2017, the City Council motion directed the City Planning Commission to research the available and most appropriate land use mechanism to limit the total number of venues in order to minimize impacts on neighborhoods. In its study, City Planning Commission staff analyzed various land use methods to potentially minimize impacts in the VC district. They included dispersion measures, conditional uses requirements, spacing requirements, use standards, and limiting the number of venues. Because staff did not find a direct causal link between the number of adult live performance venues, rather, it presented 3 options for the City Council to consider. It included enforcing current regulations, making adult live performance venues conditional uses, and reducing the number of venues through imposition of a cap. The staff stated that if the City Council decided to reduce the number of venues through imposition of a cap, an overall cap on the number of existing venues, as well as a cap for either block face, would be the most appropriate option because it is a land use regulation tool that is used throughout the city and in other cities for other types of use. In general, the intent of this type of regulation is to reduce the cumulative negative impacts created by the concentration of a particular type of commercial use on the block and in the surrounding neighborhood. With this motion, the City Council considers adopting this option of reducing the number of venues through imposition of a cap. By pairing a cap per block face to an overall cap on the total number of adult live performance venues, the action proposed in the City Council motion would avoid an increase of adult live performance venues on blocks that currently do not contain any. As proposed in the City Council motion, existing adult live performance venues would not be forced to close. Since the right to a non-conforming use exists so long as the use itself continues, closures could only happen over time through the enforcement of existing regulation and through attrition for other reasons. The proposed text amendment, coupled with better enforcement of current laws, would give the opportunity to all operators to continue to operate within the bounds of the law. It would help preventing bad operators that pose a greater risk for crime to remain open. However, staff believes that the nature of Bourbon Street, and particularly the Vieux Carré Entertainment District, is in itself a cause for higher crime because of the concentration of entertainment uses, including not only adult live performance venues, but mostly bars, live performance venues, and live entertainment, and the concentration of visitors drawn to these uses in a small geographic area. Because of this particular characteristic, staff believes that there is nothing inherent to adult live performance venues in the VCE district that causes crime. Because no causality between the number of adult live performance venues and crime has been demonstrated in the VCE, and because higher crime rate along Bourbon Street is more likely due to a concentration of entertainment uses beyond adult live performance venue alone, staff does not believe that capping adult live performance venues to one venue per block face would have significant impacts on crime. Limiting the number of adult live performance venues in the Vieux Carré Entertainment District is a policy change that is not considered by the City Planning Commission staff to necessarily be effective in reducing criminal activity. However, if the City Council decides to create further land use regulation for ALPVs, the staff recommends modifying the cap from what is proposed in this motion. Since research shows that some venues, which is the current number of ALPVs, this should be a soft cap which creates an avenue for additional establishment above this number to be established through a conditional use process. This would allow the City Planning Commission and City Council to evaluate each proposal on a case-by-case basis for compliance with applicable use standards. The proposed cap per block face would unnecessarily create a significant number of use nonconformities in a zoning district that is specifically intended for a concentrated amount of entertainment uses. Any adult live performance venue above the one venue between each intersecting street would become a legal nonconforming use. Additionally, dispersion of adult live performance venue to one per block face in a 7-block long zoning district that allows all entertainment uses by right would not have real density implications. Therefore, the staff recommends modified approval of the proposed text amendment. The proposed uses in the VCE district. Non-conforming uses.
Thank you. As a reminder, we've adopted special rules for this docket matter. Each speaker will only be allowed to speak for 1 minute, and 2 people can seek time to you for you to speak a max of 3 minutes. However, we will only be hearing each side for a total of 20 minutes. First speaker, please state your name and address for the record.
It's Lynn Archer.
Please speak into the middle mic.
Sorry, this one right here?
Yes.
Here? Okay, great. My name is Lynn Archer. I'm the Development Director for the Bourbon Alliance of Responsible Entertainers. Many people here have ceded their time to me. I would love to be able to speak all the way through. The Bourbon Alliance...
State the people who ceded their time to you.
I think they're going to raise their hands.
Did they turn the card in?
Yes.
Okay.
The Bourbon Alliance of Responsible Entertainers requests that the City Planning Commission end the adult live performance venue study and all motions to enact any part of this study or any attempt to limit or close our workplaces. Since the study's drafting, we have witnessed its primary negative effects on our lives and our work. This study, not based on empirical evidence and tinted with the biases of those to stand to gain by it most, served to justify the raiding and shuttering of our clubs this season, putting 1,000 nightlife workers out of work at the height of Carnival. A glance at the map shows that the rated clubs now on 1 year probationary
Excuse
sentences.
me, can we please keep all talking to a minimum and respect the speaker that's speaking? Thank you.
Thank you. Now on 1 year probationary sentences are likely to be rated into closing again, achieving the City Council's wish to erode our workplace options to 1 per block face. We see you. To discriminate against us while claiming this process is natural attrition. Measures like this have been enacted all over the country and are hurting people everywhere. The mayor's office has an attorney on retainer right now whose firm's sole purpose is to eliminate businesses like ours and make work as hard as possible for women and nightlife workers. He has made his career off of destroying ours, and his policies hurt people like us all over the country. We see you. We are more than a few showgirls. In the last 6 weeks alone, 3,000 people signed on in support of our organization and the working people of the Vieux-Carré. People signed on to a statement to be read on their behalf at this hearing. Over 300 people submitted their own statements for public comment before the deadline. To speak first. Of those who signed, nearly 50% come from New Orleans, 3/4 from the Gulf South, and many more from all over the country. Signatures came from as far away as Japan, the Netherlands, Australia, and every world-class city. What happens in New Orleans matters to citizens everywhere. Of those who signed, 1/4 are entertainers and another 1/8 are club coworkers. More than half of those who signed are allies. We've attached these additional signatures and statements, and I'll read as many here today as I can. There are many people here who have something to say as well, and I hope you'll give them all the chance to speak. Thank you. We all see you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I've got a little more. I'd like to read our statement.
Next speaker. That concludes the 3 minutes.
Okay.
One minute. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Naya, and I live in the French Quarter. Good morning. I've been in New Orleans for almost 10 years, and I'm thankful that the CPC has allowed me to speak. I'm entirely thankful to a certain lawyer for awakening a sleeping giant. I don't know all the places you have been, but in New Orleans, women of the night, we do not go quietly. In America, the adult industry has settled the Midwest, and entire towns and cities have popped up around the adult entertainment. And those women's efforts and contributions to the entire local community made it thrive. And because of the adult entertainment of Wyoming, it became the first state to allow women the right to vote. The adult industry has always been a friend to America. In New Orleans, the tourism brings in $7.4 billion from 11.45 million people. And the French Quarter is the main attraction, and Bourbon Street is the crown jewel, and is the most famous street in the world because it is aligned with adult entertainment.
Thank you. That concludes your time. Next speaker. Please hold all applause.
Hi, I believe some people wanted to cede their time to me by a show of hands.
3 minutes.
Hello, esteemed individuals of the Commission. My name is Sable Mongold at Magazine Street, New Orleans. As you all know, we are coming up on New Orleans' 300th birthday. This town's unique history and intoxicating culture draws people from around the world to eat, drink, and yes, have one hell of a good time. And maybe you have to be from here to understand it, but it is a place that we are not only comfortable with, but we thrive in. So when the government feels the need to retain an outside lawyer who makes his living off closing adult businesses to tell us what's right for the city, for our city, it does not sit well with us. If there is nothing to offend him, he's out of a job. Oh, and a heck of a job he's doing. I shudder to think of what was lost to the history books when District Attorney Jim Garrison pulled his cleanse in 1962. I refuse to imagine a New Orleans where we cannot express ourselves, but I get to watch my tax dollars fund lap dances that falsely incriminate me and my coworkers. Yes, my tax dollars. Believe me when I say the majority of us have written more than one fat check to the Louisiana Department of Revenue. We are not victims, we are not foolish or weak, and we are definitely not shrinking violets. We are mothers, scholars, some of us work multiple jobs to provide for our families and loved ones. We are a vivid and valid section of this community and a valuable part of this town's economy. Discriminatory zoning processes, closing clubs, and keeping us from working not only cuts into our pockets, but also the businesses throughout the city. We work hard and we play hard. Restaurants, shops, taxis, we spend our money here, we pay our taxes here, and we know a thing or two about tipping. There is a reason New Orleans is the #1 tourist destination in the country, but go ahead and stomp out the things that make the city unique and entertaining. As I said, New Orleans is about to celebrate its tricentennial, 300 years of history and culture that in no small part was built on the fact that we throw parties like no one else on the planet. And all the repaving of Bourbon Street.
My name is Holly Hawthorne. I reside at 2418 St. Philip. I've been an entertainer on Bourbon Street for 10 years. During times of hurricanes, oil spills, and busted pipes, stripping has been the thing to subsidize the first annual New Orleans Tamale Festival, and stripping paid for that. And whenever you're keeping us from doing those extra hustles, you're destroying a gig economy here in New Orleans. We know what you want. You want to update Bourbon Street. You want to make it more accessible to families. Having strip clubs and having that safe place for those tourists to go to, that means they're not on the streets going to the pimps and the drug dealers. All we want to do is work with you, work with us. Thank you for your time. You know how valuable it is.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is El Camino, and I reside at 940 Desire Street here in New Orleans. It is doubtful this storied city can thrive upon the dusty caricatures of yesteryear alone. We need live entertainers who provide an immediate, tangible connection to the beauty, charm, and lifeblood of this city. As a resident of New Orleans and an entertainer on Bourbon Street, this is what I have garnered from our multitude of diverse guests who make their southern flights in search of revelry and enchantment. I believe truly that it is in the best interests of the legacy of this volatile regency to uplift rather than to condemn the many skillful, integrous, and enticing employees of one of the city's most prized and lucrative streets. The proposed motion will not ensure the safety of any of Bourbon's industrious workers. However, it is evident it will revoke the opportunity for hundreds of locals to ensure their livelihood, myself included. Furthermore, this measure, unprecedented and unprovoked, will further liminalize an already marginalized workforce.
Thank you.
I have a seated time, so I have more time. Thank you.
2 more minutes.
I appreciate it. Furthermore, it will liminalize an already marginalized workforce and disregard all those who have endeavored not only to provide for ourselves and our families, as well as our communities, but also to actively contribute to the culture of the city that we love. If the officials of this alluring city decide to expel the very people who have sculpted its heritage and embellished its lore, they may very well find themselves digging for a quarter and coming up with only a dime.
Good afternoon, my name is Michelle Rutherford. I'm at 1700 South.
Speaking to the middle mic.
Middle mic, thank you. Good afternoon, my name is Michelle Rutherford, and I'm at 1700 South Grant Park, and I'm the lawyer for the Bourbon Alliance of Responsible Entertainers. And I'd ask if everyone in the crowd who supports the strip clubs, if they could just stand up silently and show their support. We just want to thank the commission for We agree with the staff that there is no need for a policy change and that there is no need for a limit on the number of adult live performance venues. We want to thank you guys for the dignity and respect that you've shown this project and your hard work. We think it demonstrates that the people of New Orleans support the right of women to work, they support their strip clubs, and they support them in the Detroit and elsewhere throughout the city. We'd ask that you pass along the comments and the energy in this room today to the City Council and let them know that our strip clubs are here to stay and we wouldn't want them anywhere else. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
My name is RJ Thompson, and I live at 526 Dumaine in the French Quarter. I am a go-go dancer at the Bourbon Pub and Phoenix Bar. I am also a human rights attorney and the director of the Sex Workers Project of the Urban Justice Center, a national organization that advocates for the human rights of sex workers and works to eradicate human trafficking. Thank you for your time and for the understanding you have already shown that our work as dancers and adult entertainment venues does not increase criminality. Policies such as the proposed zoning regulations further marginalize already often misunderstood and disrespected workers, increase poverty among workers in our city, decrease safety for workers, and would create an exodus of workers and tourists from this city, which stands alone as the most culturally unique city in the United States. I share these two identities and jobs of go-go dancer and attorney with you today to highlight but one aspect of the diversity of sex workers. We are intellectuals. We have families. We are people of faith. We are people of all genders, all class backgrounds, and all races.
Thank you. Okay, 2 more minutes.
Thank you. We are adult entertainers for a wide variety of legitimate reasons, yet we must constantly defend our work as legitimate work in ways that workers in most industries never have to explain or defend. Sex work, including go-go dancing, has allowed me to get out of educational and personal debt that my salary as a nonprofit public interest lawyer could not do. It has also given me the opportunity to be part of the incredible entertainment and hospitality industry in New Orleans, the city I love so deeply, which is one of the many aspects of our culture that draw people from around the world and strengthen both our city and state economies. In addition to my own personal narrative, I want to share with you today that policies which marginalize workers and push certain economies underground only exacerbate the risk of human trafficking. They do not solve the problem of human trafficking, as some would have you believe. No valid correlation has been shown between adult entertainment venues in the French Quarter and human trafficking. My organization simultaneously opposes human trafficking in all its forms as grievous human rights violations and advocates for the rights of sex workers as human rights. Sex work, including dancing and adult venues, is work. We are workers and human beings who deserve the same respect, labor rights, freedom of choice, and economic opportunities as everyone else in our city. The proposed zoning policies would have negative repercussions on public health, worker rights, and local and state economies. Please help us to keep the French Quarter a place that tourists from around the world want to come to, and please help us keep New Orleans the unique city it is rather than becoming anywhere USA. We deeply appreciate your support and solidarity to ensure that the human rights of all workers and all people are respected in the city of New Orleans. Thank you.
Thank you. Before the next speaker, we have about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to ask that all speakers kind of be respectful of the people that are standing behind you. There's 5 minutes left.
Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Peñaranda. I am a counselor advocate at the Sex Workers Project in New York City. Thank you for having me here in your beautiful city. I wanted to talk to you all about, as a counselor advocate, having worked with survivors of crime and 8 of those years with survivors of human trafficking, that an experience in New York City, we see similar law enforcement raids to massage parlors like the ones that took place in October in New Orleans. We had a woman that was arrested time and time again, and then in the last raid was harassed by police and jumped out of a window and died. Raids in these workplace venues where there are suspected trafficking or daily life for people in New York City, they have not resulted in increased identification of trafficking and instead have put more workers at risk of harm, including death. We have seen law enforcement do this across the country, and they themselves have said that this does not help identify trafficking survivors, and in fact it increases distrust among survivors. Put simply, raids do not stop human trafficking. Closing of workplaces do not stop human trafficking. Instead, they leave entire communities vulnerable with limited employment opportunities and real-life consequences to workers' life. Please don't let this happen again in New Orleans.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Griffiths, and I reside on 3414
Speaking to the mic.
Street. I'm sorry?
Speaking to the mic.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Griffiths, and I reside on 3414 Bean Street. I've been a dancer on Bourbon Street for 6 years now, a dancer for a decade. I've worked all over the country. As you guys have seen, sex trafficking is not happening in the clubs. These are a safe place for us to work. You recently turned our lives of hundreds of women upside down overnight, putting us all in a state of desperation. If you continue to do so, the crime that you seek to stop within the clubs is the crime that you're going to find on the street. I cannot be drugged and raped within the club because I cannot leave with a customer. I can be drugged and raped by just going to any bar down Bourbon Street. Please put an end to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
This thing is a little tall for me. My name is Adonica Nelson. I live on Decatur in the French Quarter. Thank you so much. New Orleans is a city that has been built on stories. Bourbon Street is the crown jewel of this city. It always has been and it always will be. It is 2018. Why are we still talking about this? Why is this still a problem? We want the same thing. No one person here wants to see human trafficking in the clubs. No one here wants to see New Orleans losing money. No one here wants to see corruption within our politicians. If we, even by attrition, close down the safe, legal ways for women and men to make money in this city, we will cause the very same crimes that we are all so desperately fighting. I urge this commission to stand on the right side of history with the Bourbon Alliance of Responsible Entertainers and with the entertainers in this city to stop all of this.
Thank you. I'm sorry, you actually already spoken. You have the maximum minutes.
Ceded time to me, and I wasn't aware.
How long did you speak for?
1 minute.
You have 1 minute. You were the last speaker.
Okay. Do I begin now? Okay.
State your name and address again.
Okay. My name is Naya, and I live in the French Quarter.
Despite everything that has happened, I do not believe that there are rich investors that have told you that our adult entertainment is a hub for human trafficking and criminal activity. In the recent raids, 0 victims of sex trafficking were found, 0 arrests were made, and 0 underage women were found. In the words of Lee, the saloon GM, did you find your weapons of mass destruction? No. Instead, they grasped at straws and suspended liquor licenses by using unconstitutional laws that are no longer. Bodies are still being policed by the police, resulting in thousands of workers out of work during our busiest season. Please recognize that this is a political game played by the greed and people that do not truly love New Orleans. Tax-paying American citizens are suffering and will continue to.
Thank you. That concludes your time. We'll now hear from the opponent. Up to 2 minutes can be ceded to you. Hold all applause.
You both said, and in the report you write, however, the City Council decides to create further land use regulations, etc. The staff recommends, and then you give a recommendation, modifying this motion, soft. Something that we could move today, or is that only, as you put it, if the City Council decides to create?
So, and modify that recommendation, and then the recommendation you make will go to the City Council, and they will ultimately act on the change, if any, of legislation.
You feel that your recommendation allows both flexibility, the retaining of this industry, but a way to make it a little bit more controlled. Is that approximately right?
So our recommendation is based on some findings that came from our study, based on some findings that came after our study. Ultimately, we did not feel that the specific language that was included in the motion, even if the underlying concerns were valid, would not have addressed those concerns.
Correct.
They were not specifically targeted in a way that would achieve the results that were intended. It's very difficult to essentially enforce crime through zoning. That's not what zoning find any basis upon which we could recommend a reduction in the number of clubs.
And in this, what you call a soft cap at 14, which keeps a little bit more control than now exists, is that correct?
Essentially, it establishes, it maintains the status quo as permitted. So,
but doesn't allow growth, and does make it a condition.
And I think one of the speakers raised it at the number of clubs.
Mr. Chairman, and I'll defer to my commissioner at the other end too, I would like, for the discussion at least, to make a motion that we approve precisely the staff recommendation for what we would call a soft cap of 14, but that's just my shorthand. The recommendation is in our package. And secondly, that we ask the staff to continue to study Bourbon Street in all of its aspects, including APLVs, but also ways to improve the zoning and use of Bourbon Street. Is that something that would make sense, Staff Director?
I second.
You know, we do normally when we do the master plan, we do zoning updates. We certainly have in the past and will continue to make recommendations about.
Follow up. I want to clarify exactly what the staff recommendation is. So the staff recommendation is a soft cap at the exact number that exists now, which is 14. No reduction by attrition to 7 or any other number. No limit of 1 per block phase. So simply a soft cap at 14 and the ability to go above 14 by the conditional use process.
That's correct.
Okay, so that is nothing more and nothing less.
Correct.
And the reason you called it a soft cap is the ability to increase through the conditional use process.
Correct.
So it's more or less, I'm going to change the wording, it's a real cap. The recommendation would be for a real cap, a legal cap of 14, which is the number that exists now, and the ability to go greater through the conditional use process, which we just used on the last docket item, was a conditional use.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions from any other commissioners?
Just very quick, just want to make sure that everyone here understands that the general intent of this type of regulation was to avoid the accumulation of any one type of commercial use and its negative impacts on the community or the neighborhood. The direction we go with Bourbon Street, and also the enforcement piece of this to stay naturally occur. And I'll give it up to the rest of the commission.
Any other comments?
Yes, I would like to thank the members of the public who were present today. Congratulate staff on using the tough wording that you needed to use. Absent a true study of numbers, there can't be a determination that adult live performance venues necessarily attract criminal activity. And I think that you all and I think that these issues sometimes become political, but that staff has done a good job avoiding the politics and stating the facts in a way that present us with an opportunity to view this in a rational way. So what we're basically proposing here is not much change other than that these venues are not allowed by right. Now, the new ones, that they have to be a conditional use process. So that involves, for anyone who wants to understand the conditional use process, or maybe, Mr. Rivers, I can ask you for on the use process, could you briefly explain the conditional use process for the public?
Sure, and just to clarify, the cap at 14 means that if any of those 14 close down, then getting back up to the number 14 is permitted by right. Once you get above 14, then there would be a conditional use process, which is a zoning process, requires a neighborhood participation program, requires public hearing before the City Planning Commission and City Council, and would be subject to the requirements that are contained in Article 4, the general requirements that look at the impact of the proposed use on the surrounding community.
Okay. I'm prepared to support City Council Motion M17-552 in light of what I consider to be the great work done by the staff, and again, thank the public for providing your input, which helped us to reach this sort of conclusion.
Thank you, Commissioner Green, for those comments. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Hughes, any comments? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Isaacson, second by Commissioner Steig. I'll call the question. Show my hands. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Opposed? The motion is carried unanimously.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess to allow everyone to move out who needs to move out, so before we can resume the meeting. Thank you.
If we can get everybody, we really appreciate y'all attending today, but if we can get everybody who's not here for the next cases to slowly make it towards the door, because we're going to get kicked out by basketball. could get you guys to the door so we can hear the rest of the applicants and let the kids play basketball.
Please keep all talking to a minimum. You can step outside the building if you need to continue your conversations. Zoning docket 01318.
Zoning docket 01318 is a request by U1 Conway LLC for a conditional use to permit a standard restaurant over 5,000 square feet of floor area in HUD1 Historic Neighborhood Business District, a CPC Character Preservation Corridor Design District, and the Magazine Street use precinct. The property is located at 3300, 3306 Magazine Street and 1030 to 1042 Toledano Street. This request was referred at the applicant's request from the January 23rd meeting to enable them to continue to work with the community. This request, staff has found that the proposal is consistent with the master plan and recommends approval of zoning docket 1318, subject to 9 provisos.
Granderson here for the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Granderson. Before you speak, can we have the doors closed in the back? And I'll ask anyone remaining inside, please keep your talking to a minimum and respect all the speakers that are speaking. Thank you, Mr. Granderson.
Miles Granderson, 800 Barone here for the applicant. Based on conversations with neighborhood associations, we are requesting deferral to continue those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant has requested a deferral. Are there any other speakers here to speak in opposition or in favor of the project? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition?
Yes, we have several people to speak in opposition. I'm also speaking on behalf of our neighborhood organization in the Bywater called Neighbors First for Bywater. We were asking for a deferral of your decision today.
Absolutely. However, since this was advertised, if anyone who's here today would like to speak has the opportunity to speak. Would you like to speak?
Yes, I'm one of the people that is speaking. You got the wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Okay. So, as it relates to this document, is there anyone here else who wants to speak in opposition or for this document? If not, that closed the public hearing portion. Commissioner Green?
Mr. Chair, in light of the fact that the applicant has requested deferral, I move that we defer zoning docket 01318 2 weeks or a month.
February 27th, which is
Sorry, February the 27th. I move that we defer zoning docket number 01318 to the February 27th meeting of the commission.
It's been moved by Commissioner Green for deferral to February 27th, second by Commissioner Hughes. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, raise your hand by saying aye. 5 in favor. The motion is carried. Zoning docket 01518.
Zoning docket number 01518, also deferred from your February the 6th meeting by applicant Wilson Lee Investment LLC. His request for a conditional use to permit the gas station and also to permit the retail sale of packaged alcoholic beverages in a C1 general commercial district, which also has an enhancement corridor design overlay at 2000 Earhart Boulevard. The petition site is located along a major corridor just outside the CBD, where residential uses are nearby but not immediately abutting the property. Proposal consists of a substantial renovation to an existing multi-tenant shopping center through the addition of 10 fuel pumps and a canopy in front of the existing rehabilitated building. Site activities associated with fuel sales are appropriate if design and use standards contained in the zoning ordinance are implemented. Further, the sale of packaged alcohol is not inherently different than the sale of other food or drink products and is appropriate if responsibly managed. Therefore, we do recommend the approval of zoning docket 01518, subject to 15 documentation and or modification to verify CZO compliance, because the proposal is generally consistent with the plan for the 21st century and with the general purpose and intent of the applicable zoning district ability in both design character and in use.
Thank you. Mr. Granderson.
Mr. Anderson, 800 Barone, here for the applicant. At the last CPC meeting, it was requested by CPC that we defer this to February 27th. We deferred it to February 6th instead, hoping the conversation to go a little quicker. But we have continued conversations with the neighborhood, progress with the tenant, if you remember, Danny Food Store. And in light of that request and the Danny Food Store, the tenant has also requested that we defer this until February 27th in consistency of what CPC requested last meeting and to continue the conversations.
Thank you, Mr. Granderson. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in reference to this document matter, in support or in opposition?
Mr. Chair, in light of the fact that there is no additional discussion and it's been requested by the applicant, I move for the deferral of zoning docket 01518 to the February 27th meeting of the Planning Commission.
It's been moved by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Hughes. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor for a deferral to February 27th, raise your hand. Opposed? Being none, this document has been properly moved to February 22nd.
Zoning docket 01718 is a request for a conditional use to permit a mini warehouse in a C2 auto-oriented commercial district, the E-Norc Eastern New Orleans Renaissance Corridor Use Restriction Overlay District, and a CT Corridor Transformation Design Overlay District. The subject property is Lot 2F in Section 24, Latrac Track, in the 3rd Municipal District, bounded by Interstate 10, Plainfield Drive, Reed Boulevard, Reed Lane, and the Far Canal. The municipal address is 10301 North I-10 Service Road. The applicant is proposing a 3-story structure with 126,000 square feet in gross floor area and 950 storage units on part of the commercial portion of the subject lot. Based on an initial design review of the proposed structure, The staff found the design to be deficient in terms of having too large of a front yard setback, too small of a rear yard setback, requiring 28 more off-street parking spaces and some other modifications. In addition, if a hardship exists and the applicant requests any waivers, the applicant shall make that request in writing and provide a narrative justifying the waivers in accordance with the 9 variance approval standards in Article 4, Section 4.6F of the Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance. Since a major redesign of the entire site is required, the staff recommends allowing additional time for the applicant to revise the plans and staff time to review those revised plans. Therefore, the City Planning Commission staff recommends a deferral of this request for 1 month. Therefore, the staff recommends the deferral of zoning docket 1718 until the March 13, 2018 City Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone here to speak for zoning docket 0718? Mr. Grandison.
Miles Grandison, 800 Barone, here to speak for the applicant. In light of the plan changes that are needed, as staff spoke on, we are accepting the request to defer for 1 month until the March 13th, I believe, meeting, or whatever that date may be. And we are continuing competition in the neighborhood as well.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone here to speak in support or in opposition for this zoning docket?
Good afternoon. My name is Calvin Lopez.
Are you speaking in support or in opposition?
In opposition.
Okay. Please state, so the applicant has requested a deferral?
I'm aware of that.
Okay. You would like to go ahead and speak on record?
Yes. My name is Calvin Lopez. I reside in East New Orleans, 7450 Mayo. I just wanted to speak just very briefly, not necessarily to what the staff reports included, but I wanted to state that basically this location does need development. It is ideal for development, and this is a good property or good use of that property. However, I wanted to reinforce the issues that were brought up at the NPP, that we were really concerned about security, hours of operation, and fencing, because the area is so isolated. Also, the neighbors to the rear had requested a solid wall because prior to this application, at that site was a multi-family, and it created significant problems for the neighbors. And I understand that when you readdress the setback issue, you probably will resolve that. The other item is really an aesthetic item, but since this is on the interstate, it is one of the first properties that people see when they traverse the interstate, that significant detail be given to landscaping and the type of structure. We had requested unanimously at the NPP that this have some sort of a office park look to it, but the revised photos that came through showed this with a flat front. We do not wish to have that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, if that's the only additional comment, in light of the request of the applicant and the public to have this matter deferred to the March 23rd meeting, I move for March 13th, the deferral of zoning docket 01718 to the March 13th City Planning Commission meeting.
It's been moved and seconded by Commissioner Green, seconded by Commissioner Hughes. I'll just ask, thank you, Speaker, for speaking in opposition. I'll ask that you kind of get with the applicant, so maybe you guys can work that detail out and have those issues resolved by March 13th. Is there any other discussion by any other commissioners? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor for a deferral for this document until March 13, 2018, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is approving. Next zoning docket, 01818.
The next item is zoning docket 18-18 for property located at 2728 Bienville Avenue. This is a request for a zoning change from an HURD2 two-family residential district to an HUB1 historic urban neighborhood business district. The applicant has requested the zoning amendment in order to convert the property to a commercial short-term rental, which is disallowed under the existing zoning. The zoning change is not allowable under the master plan because the property has no apparent history of commercial use. The master plan's future land use designation for the site allows commercial use only where current or former commercial use is verified. Sanborn maps document a residential use in the site dating back to the late 19th century. Further, the zoning change request would result in a loss of residential land at the site and would not protect adjacent residential districts from the encroachment of incompatible non-residential uses into the interior of an established HURD2 district. Therefore, the staff recommends denial of zoning docket 18-18.
First call I have is Isaac Penis.
How do you spell it? Let's make that spelling again.
I do apologize. I think it was more of your penmanship. Come on, Ms. Isaac. Please state your name and address for the record.
And you have someone ceded time to me, or can I?
Absolutely. You can speak for 4 minutes.
A couple minutes is fine.
Okay.
All right. So for the record, the name is Isaac Pinhas, 3112 Upper Line Street. City Planning Commission and neighbors, thank you for considering my request, and I appreciate your time to hear what I have to say. I understand the concern for the influx of short-term rental-related zoning change requests. And I'll remind opponents that we're not here today to debate the ordinance. We're here to talk specifically about the zoning at 2728 Bienville. Now, there's a difference between a house completely surrounded by residential homes and one on an avenue with multiple commercially zoned properties, both across the street and on the block face. Now, allow me to quote the zoning history of the site as stated in the CPC report. 1929, E, Commercial District. 1953, L, Light Industrial District. 1970 through 2015, RO1 General Office. And effective August 2015, HURD2 Residential. So to clarify, the lot has been zoned commercial or industrial for roughly 87 and a half of the last 90 years. And only actually changed the residential zoning 2.5 years ago. Now let's look at the zoning and current uses of the 2700 block of Bienville. On the northwest corner of the even side is HUB1, a mechanic shop with an inventory of vehicles parked on the street. On the other side of North White is LI zoning, I believe, for the RTA. On the other side of the street, directly across the street from my property, are 2 more double lots zoned HUB1, one of which just got rezoned that way within the last few months. Now, roughly 50 feet going southeast from my property are lots zoned HUMU, more commercial lots, both on Bienville and on Broad Street, the next cross street. So I understand the CPC report suggests that we are seeking to spot zone my one property, but on the greater view of the block, in my opinion, the entire block face was spot zoned residential within a sea of commercial properties. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the speaker? Any questions for the speaker? If not, is there anyone else here to speak in support of this zoning docket? If not, we'll move to the opposition. First card, Erin Holmes.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Erin Holmes here representing the Preservation Resource Center at 923 Chapatulas. We're here to join the neighborhood organization, which is a mid-city neighborhood organization, in opposition to the zoning request, which is yet another commercial spot zone for individual benefit. Furthermore, as indicated by the staff report, the parcel does not have a history of commercial use. Last meeting, this body denied 4 similar spot zones that would allow for unlimited short-term rental usage along with a wide array of permitted commercial uses by right, thus inappropriately changing the residential character of those areas. We hope that you continue your determination that these zoning changes undermine the intent of the existing short-term rental ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Next speaker, Catlin Hill.
Currently resident at 749 Piperville Street, which is just around the corner from this property. Our backyards kind of abut the backyards of the property on Bienville. I won't take too much of your time because I largely want to echo the comments from the neighborhood organization, and I also want to extend a thanks to the staff for so thoroughly analyzing this issue, and I want to ultimately urge the commission to accept the recommendation of the staff to deny this. I was encouraged last week, or 2 weeks ago, by comments from Commissioner Isaacson, where he said, I hope we're sending the signal to people not to go and buy a property, then spot zone. I hope the message goes out that we're tending to deny these unless there's some extreme circumstance. I would submit that those circumstances do not exist here, and I would urge the commission to continue sending that message. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin Lopez.
I worked in this area for several years, and I'm more commercial than it may already be. It should remain so. It's inappropriate to have spot zoning, which is what this is out of control. I ask you to
please state your name and address.
I think that it's become pretty apparent that the Airbnb has been atrocious, and it's taken cannot afford the rent in many neighborhoods where they work. And I think it's about time that the City Planning Commission began to recognize this and began to turn this situation around by denying this conditional use commercial zoning permits, and also we need to revisit this whole issue in the very near future for the sake of the workers in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers in opposition? If not, the applicant now has time for rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
I'm afraid I take copious notes for rebuttal, but on the point brought up in regards to traffic, as we're operating now, there's been no increase in traffic. Yeah, I haven't had any complaints from neighbors. This is the first time I've heard from many neighbors, but I'm happy to distribute my phone number if there's any issues in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. I have one question for you, though. How long have you actually owned the property on Bienville?
So I bought the property as you see it, the empty lot. And I built this house with the intent of reselling it. However, the feedback I got from potential buyers was, this area is too commercial. There's too much traffic. There's too much other commercial stuff around, et cetera, et cetera. That's how the short-term rental resulted.
Okay, thank you. That now close the public hearing portion for the zoning docket matter. Commissioner Hughes.
I don't know if there's any discussion, Mr. Chairman, but I'd like to move for approval of staff's recommendation.
The zoning docket matter. Sure.
Since I was quoted as saying it last time, I'm going to support this denial, but I really think it's extraordinary that happened. We should not rezone in order to undermine the delicate compromise that allowed for short-term rentals. And so it's going to be a long time before at least me, and I hope some of the other commissioners will say, okay, let's overturn this compromise by changing the zoning in spots. So please don't go buying property or building property or whatever, thinking you're going to get a spot zone to change this compromise.
Please hold on for your applause. And to add to that, Commissioner Isaacson, I couldn't agree more with you. I'll also add this. This body, we have the distinct honor and privilege of making zone changes. And we all know that zoning is forever. So a spot zone in a residential neighborhood that changes to the commercial for the future use once short-term rentals goes away could be devastating to residential neighborhoods. And I think as a commissioner, I think it's in my best interest necessarily to make sure that we protect residential neighborhoods and we protect all neighborhoods, and no matter where you live in the city, whether it's uptown, downtown, Ninth Ward. So,
fellow commissioners, I would like to also echo those comments, but I'd like to mention to the developers on the record that we have a master plan and that this commission and its staff has been relatively consistent. If there's no history of commercial use of a property, very honestly, you're going to have great difficulty because it becomes a spot zoning. So I just want to encourage developers. I understand the pursuit of profits, but to be aware of the fact that we are here to enforce the master plan, and that is a consideration that must be taken into account to protect our neighborhood. So please look at the history of the property and don't buy something without having looked at the master plan and gotten a feel for whether or not it has been used as a commercial property in the past. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Green. Any other comments? If not, we have a motion for approval of staff report by Commissioner Hughes, second by Commissioner Green. I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion has been properly moved for denial. Zoning docket 01918.
Zoning docket 01918 is a request by David McDonald and Irelis Nazario McDonald for a zoning to an HMC1 Historic Marinade Treme Bywater Commercial District on Square 269, Lot E in the 3rd Municipal District, bounded by Burgundy, Powder, Toro, and North Rampart Streets. The municipal address is 1919 Burgundy Street. The applicant proposes to rezone the subject property to allow for the space to be used as offices. The current floor plan submitted by applicants shows the building's ground floor is already built out for an office space with individual offices and a conference room, but plans submitted to the Board of Zoning Adjustments which were approved in 2015 show 3 residential dwelling units in the building. The rezoning of this property to an HMC1 Historic Marinade Treme Bywater Residential District or any other district would be considered a spot zone and would have to meet the standards set forth by the Commission's Historic Nonconforming Use Policy. The petition property meets all of the standards within the Historic Nonconforming Use Policy's criteria, which identifies this property as a historic industrial property. The site's master plan's designation allows commercial use in locations where current or former commercial use is verified and is consistent with the master plan, in addition to meeting most standards for approval set forth in Article 4. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the request.
Thank you. Is the applicant here to speak in support of the zoning document? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is David McDonald. My address is 1919.
Can you come, just lift the mic up? There you go.
My name is David McDonald. My address is 1919 Burgundy. It's the home.
Can you hear me?
Okay, all right, sorry. My name is David McDonald. My wife and I are the owners of the property, and we currently live there in one of the 3 units. We bought the building back in 2013, and it was we're actually architects, and we designed the building as well as we were the general contractors and constructed. And we actually just finished construction probably about 9 months ago. And what happened during construction, the CZO was passed, and the lot was rezoned from commercial to residential. And when we bought the property, we had hoped to someday have our offices, if we ever so lucky to have enough clients to have an office on the first floor. So this ability is basically taken away from us. And so that's basically why we're here. The property was blighted for many years. We bought the property from a man in Florida. Commercial zoning and use goes back to 1929. It's in the report. I mean, you can see by the building, it's a concrete steel structure. It was built for commercial. People consider commercial, but in any case, known about the history of the property and the anomaly that it is, that the property, this building itself was actually built in around 1970. But had they known about the history of the property, they would have not zoned it residential. And in fact, there are other anomalies that we noticed. There's a house across the street. There's a commercial zone right across the street. And there is a single-family home in that commercial zone.
That concludes your 2 minutes. However, I'm going to ask you to kind of just finish the last point, just so that all the commissioners can hear it, including myself.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There's a single-family home across the street in the commercial zone, which is right across the street, which technically I guess we could be a part of, depending on how you consider spot zoning or not. In any case, that single family is in a commercial zone. So.
And where's your current office now?
It's actually in our house. We have a 2-bedroom, and we use one of the bedrooms home office.
And the current structure now is built out for multi-family 3 units?
Yes.
Any other questions from any other commissioners?
Yeah, I have one question for you. So how has the property actually been used historically?
Historically, it's been used for a myriad of commercial uses. It's been used for building Mardi Gras floats. The big glass in the front used to be a garage door in which they would pull in and out more floats. We've been told by neighbors that have lived in the neighborhood for many years. Oh, by the way, we have letters of support from our immediate neighbors. And I think the majority of the neighbors on the street, the owners of the street and renters. In any case, they used to store shipboat anchors here. There was a plumbing contractor, a general contractor's office here as well. There was a catering place. There was a laundromat for hotels. Most recently, it was a comedy club on the first floor, and the opposite of their leases. So it was in pretty bad shape. It had been used and abused over the years. But I think that kind of makes the point.
So your other 2 units, are those long-term or short-term rentals?
They're long-term.
Any other questions? Okay. I have 8 cards in opposition for this zoning docket matter, so I will ask that cards in opposition. Opposition only has a period of 15 minutes to speak. So if anyone is ceding time or has ceded time to you, just please let me be aware of that. But I will ask that each speaker try to limit their seating time so that each speaker can actually have an opportunity to speak. First call in opposition, Susan Hall. Just come to the mic, please.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
You-
Can everybody hear me?
You can go ahead and take it down.
This thing's gonna fall over.
No, take the mic down.
Hard to read and talk into the thing at the same time. I'm used to the chambers. Hopefully it'll be better when we get back. My name is Lisa Suarez. I'm Vice President of the Faubourg Marigny Improvement Association. We thought so much of the McDonald's renovation and rehab of this horrible building last year that we invited them to be on the home tour, and they got quite a bit of positive press on the design, which is quite beautiful. However, as much as I appreciate their work and the neighborhood appreciates their work, and we also appreciate the work of staff who put a 51-page report out on this, I'm having a lot of difficulty understanding why the staff would recommend a spot zone in the middle of a residential block, especially after this body voted against other such uses in other areas of the city. And I do want to bring out Mr. Isaacson's comment and his eloquent comments in the paper and again here today. Faubourg Marigny Improvement Association practically invented historic Marigny zoning and also protected the concept of commercial corner store uses by initiating the residential diversity overlay in the 1990s. Zoning, as you well know, does not stay with the owners, it stays with the building. We strenuously object to the re-incursion of commercial property in the middle of the block. What was the CZO for? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Please allow applause. Next speaker, Wynn Clark.
Good afternoon. I'm Wynn Clark. I'm a lawyer. I'm a solo lawyer. I practiced in Gulfport 6 years ago. I live at 2101 Burgundy, number 2. If you care to know what number 2 is, there's 5 units there. It's a small condominium complex called Marigny Lofts Condominium. We don't have a sign. If you walk right by it, you wouldn't know it was a condominium. We have people who live there full time. It's a great place to live. I oppose the request to rezone this property. I've had a few zoning cases in my time. They've all been in Mississippi, so I won't talk about law, I'm just talking about facts. Mr. Isaacson said, I think an hour or so ago, that there was a delicate balance. And indeed there is. There is a delicate balance to living in a residential area that's popular, that yes, we have some commercial property across the street. I have Wasabi, I'm one of their better customers. Down the street, we have Lee's been there for years. I'm a customer there too. The John, I occasionally go over there. I know the owner. And we usually get a positive response. Let me tell you about the delicate balance. Why another rezoning in the middle of the Marigny Triangle is a bad idea. That I get up, I have to go out with my little bag, and I have to pick up trash, whether it's blown down the street, where it comes from, I don't know, a lot of plastic cups.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next.
Faubourg Marigny Improvement Association. This is yet another.
State your address for the record.
I'm sorry, 1418 Charters. This is yet another attempt to rezone a residential unit to commercial in the Marigny Triangle. This was rezoned as residential as part of the CZO. Much work was put into the CZO and the master plan, as we continue to do. To grant these continual spot zoning requests will exhaust the neighbors as they try to keep up with what's going on in their neighborhoods. The point of like we're drinking out of a fire hose sometimes in the Marigny. People are constantly trying to come in, rezone the property. The zoning stays with the property. So this could be flipped, turned into a short-term rental, and we're going to have to deal with it. the history of commercial use, if you use that argument like I've heard it used here, means there's no reason for a CZO. Because every property at some point had a commercial use. I live in a condo building. Well, guess what? That was once a bed and breakfast. So somebody could come in, and I'm sure they had a jazz brunch there one time. Guess what? You just had a music club if you use this rationale of using Consider relevant property down the street was 2301 to 2329 Burgundy, and that was rezoned to be a hotel now. That's St. Peter and St. Paul Church. As you can tell by the address, 2301 to 2329. That's a giant property. I believe that's the whole block. If not, it's most of the block there. And there's nothing else you could really do with that property other than do something massive like a hotel. It's being successfully renovated into a hotel by some very conscientious residents.
Next speaker, Nelson Ballou.
How y'all doing? My name is Nelson Ballou. I live for the commissioners up here about the importance of preserving a neighborhood and not allowing spot zoning for, I'd like to say, greedy purposes, okay? I'm born and raised in New Orleans, 5th generation. New Orleans is all about its neighborhoods. And the people need help, they need support, because we're being run out of the city by commercial ventures in the form of Airbnb, short-term rental. And to grant spot zoning like this does nothing but hurt the integrity of the neighborhoods, and I'm here to oppose it. Thank you very much for hearing from me.
Thank you so much. Please hold all applause. Next speaker, Donna. I'm sorry, I have a hard time with that. Wakeman or Wagman? Wakeman.
I'm Donna Wakeman, 2815 North Rampart Street. And basically what I have to say is ditto to the previous speakers. Spot zoning is an abomination for neighborhoods. It destroys residents, the ambiance, and his plans may be, we all know the future for that property will be SPRs if it's rezoned to commercial. Thank you.
Next speaker, I'm having a hard time with this one. I think his last name Dickerson. Henry, 2420. Samantha Zitterman. If not, the applicant has time for rebuttal.
Be able to rebuttal. Anyway, I'd just like to say that when my wife and I bought the property, it was 2013, and so it was, and so we feel that we deserve, since we put so much of ourselves into it, and we actually, like I said, we bought it from somebody in Florida, and we actually created housing for the city and ourselves. So this is our home. This isn't just another investment property. So I just ask you to kindly look at that whenever you decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Please keep the mic in your hand. You have a question from one of the commissioners, Commissioner Isaac.
Yeah, I have a question. When you bought it, it was in the zoning that you now wanted to revert to, in other words, right?
Yes, sir, correct.
And if I, go ahead.
I was just going to say, furthermore, when we started construction, it was in a commercial zone. So technically, during the construction process is when the CCO was passed.
Yeah, so you didn't buy it in one way and try to rezone it to another.
No.
And I remember that property, I think, and I'm looking at the report, because I remember the NOLA Defender, which was a newspaper.
Yes.
Is that the one that operated in that spot you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
So it was a newspaper office.
Yeah, the second floor. On the first floor was a comedy club called the New Movement, which is now on Rampart.
Right, so there was a comedy club and the newspaper in that space. And you bought it when it was that way, right after the fence moved out?
Yes, yes. In fact, in the docket, it'll show pictures of the comedy club and the online newspaper.
So when you bought it, it basically had that club and the newspaper there.
Yes, and we...
And then it was rezoned after that, after you owned it.
Yes, we owned it in a commercial zone, correct. Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm having been a strong advocate, as people keep quoting me as saying, against rezoning, this is the type of factor that I think we look into if you bought a place that was commercial.
Yes, it seems to me it's more of an inaccuracy, which is kind of where I was going with the...
I don't think we ought to do spot zoning for short-term rentals and up in stores or clubs or whatever, and to keep a mix. So these two things are things we're going to have to balance. And the only other question I have is, the good point made by the opponents is that the zoning follows the property. I mean, so basically if we do this, somebody can then put in a comedy club, could not have liquor, is that right?
Correct.
And
you need a conditional...
Well, it would, well, even without conditional uses, it could be made into short-term rentals, it could be made into a grocery store that doesn't sell liquor, is that right?
Yeah, you're basic.
You're correct. Short-term rentals, retail stores, offices, those sorts of lower intensity commercial uses are allowed by right. A comedy club, I don't know offhand. It probably requires at least a conditional use process, but generally smaller commercial uses would be allowed there.
And we could do, just to clarify, we can do short-term commercials now.
No.
Yeah. Wow.
I was going to ask
that. So unless you have a non-conforming condition, residential zoning districts allow only accessory or temporary short-term rentals. This zoning district would allow commercial rentals, which is the full-time 365 days a year commercial rental. So it varies depending on the type, but that's the distinction.
Maybe I misspoke. I think what we would have to do is we'd have to go through a building permit process, which is simply submitting a building permit saying, okay, we're going from 3-family to 2-family, which is just a piece of paper. Once it goes through and it becomes a 2-family, then we would be able to do. So all I'm saying is, I think it is possible. It doesn't really open any doors for us.
Sure. So just to clarify, since you raised the issue, if you make this a double, one of the 2 units could be a short-term rental, provided that you occupied as the owner of the unit. If it gets a commercial zoning, both units could be short-term rentals.
I believe that's how the short-term rental works, isn't it? It's if you're in a double, I think you can consider the other one. No, it's not. It's long.
So, hold on. Oh, you will only address either like staff or the commissioners, and I'll ask anyone in the audience not to have outbursts. And Mr. Johnson, please have a seat, and you can continue to your point. If another commissioner has a question for you, or if you would like to address something to a commissioner or staff.
It was really just to say that if we really wanted to do short-term rentals, we could be doing that now, and we're not.
Are there any other questions from any commissioner? So I have a question for you. So you stated that building on.
It's to have that capacity.
Okay.
I mean, yes.
So was that your initial plan when you developed this building? Because you see completing construction 9 months ago?
There's a lot, I guess, a lot of factors that go into purchasing a building and going through it. That was one of them. Was that, hey, if we are one day in a position in which we could have an office, we could just have it right below.
So I guess, is this premature necessarily for a future use and not currently the plans to develop a commercial office on the first floor?
Yeah, correct. I don't know why in the docket there was mention of it's built out as an office. It's not built out as an office. It's the floor plan.
And do you have any plans to convert it within the next few weeks, months?
No, this is just something my wife and I,
So it's something that you basically envision for future use?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from any other commissioners? Thank you so much. I think that at this point that closes the public hearing portion for this docket matter.
I have a question for staff. I want to follow up on to clarify 5 days a year in all the units would be allowed.
Yes.
And under the current zoning, if the owner's there and it's reduced to 2 units, the other unit could be a short-term rental for 365?
Correct.
And if it was an absentee, it'd be back down to the 90 days or the full level.
The temporary, correct.
I'll make a motion. I think this is a little closer than some of the other ones that we've seen because the property has a history of commercial use. So I think it's a little closer to that balance, but I still think that considering that this would allow full-time short-term rental in the whole property 365 days a year, that to be consistent with our prior positions that we should turn down the zoning request, and my motion is for denial.
Commissioner Steve's motion is in denial of this zoning document and going against staff report, second by Commissioner Hughes.
Mr. Chairman, and I'll try to speak loudly because the mic can't reach this far. I agree with Commissioner Steve, and it's nothing against the applicant. I think he's really acting in good faith, but the potential of these units consistency. That's all I'm saying.
Zoning is one thing that is forever, and it continues. And I don't think we're at a point necessarily where the applicant will go forward with that office at this time. So I will be supporting the motion as well. Commissioner Isaac.
Well, at the risk of being the skunk at the garden party and not being in favor of short-term rentals expanding, and thus will be voting against this motion. It is a really close call, but this was a piece of property that was zoned commercial when it was bought by this husband and wife, and it is not somebody who bought a place and is trying to move it away from the way they bought it. They bought it when it was this way. I know the property up until August of 2015, it had been used quite a bit as commercial, and that's when they had it. So, on balance, I would support the staff recommendation.
Commissioner Brown.
Yeah, I am also going to vote with the motion. Again, it was very close for me, and I have no problem with what this current owner proposes to do with the property, although the short-term rentals does give me pause, but I have to go to the exceptions we make for certain spot zones, which is serving a neighborhood need. And while it seems that it was serving a neighborhood need for a while, there was some consideration made during the process of the CZO that it was deemed that the neighborhood was no longer served by this being a commercial property. And it seems that that is the case. So I will be voting to deny.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Any other comments from any other commissioner? If not, we have a motion from Commissioner this document, so I'll ask all my commissioners to raise their hand, and I'll call the question. Commissioner Green,
You're calling the question of
okay. So all in favor of the motion from Commissioner Steve, please raise your hand. That's 4. Against? 2. So we don't have a legal majority, so this basically will move up to the city council with no recommendation. Next is on the docket 02116.
Zoning docket 2116 is for a property at for a zoning change from an HMR3 Historic Marigny Tremay Bywater Residential District to an HMC2 Historic Marigny Tremay Bywater Commercial District. This request is also for conditional use to permit a hotel over 10,000 square feet in an HMC2 Historic Marigny Tremay Bywater Commercial District. The petition property consists of 7 lots of record, totaling approximately 39,990 square feet in area, just under an acre, with frontage on St. Claude Avenue and Montague Street in the Bywater neighborhood. The lots contain 4 historic which was most recently used as an office. This site contains a significant amount of open space in the rear of these developments. Most of the lots are zoned HMC2 district, but 3 of the lots within the development site are split zoned, meaning the lot contains 2 different zoning classifications. Half of these lots are zoned HMC2 district, where they front St. Claude, while the rear 3 district. The purpose of the change is also consistent with the recent future land use map amendment, changing the FLUM of this portion of the property from residential historic core to mixed-use historic core. This change was recently approved for amendment by the CPC as well as adopted by the City Council during the master plan amendment process. The list of permitted uses within the HMC2 district and the corresponding development standards are consistent with those outlined per the master plan. The staff is supportive of the zoning change request based on this consistency and believes that the impacts of more intense land uses permitted with this zoning change can design review standards and development standards, as well as limitations imposed on conditional uses. The staff also supports the zoning change as it corrects the split-zoned residential commercial parcels and potential inconsistencies they can create in the interpretation of the zoning ordinance. The properties in question front along a commercial thoroughfare, and as such, it's logical that the rear of these properties should maintain a similar designation. The second part of this request square feet in area. Although hotels are listed as permitted uses within the HMC2 district, this district also stipulates that all non-residential uses more than 10,000 square feet are deemed conditional uses. Per Article 4, conditional uses require consideration in each case of the impact of the use upon neighboring land and the public need for the particular use at the particular location. The developer is proposing to redevelop the site as a hotel complex with ancillary restaurant, an outdoor bar, and outdoor restroom facilities, and an outdoor pool and event yard area. The existing structures would be repurposed as guest rooms, a reception area and lobby, and a restaurant. Additional guest houses would be developed toward the rear of the site, and the pool, outdoor bar, and event yard would be situated in the middle of the site between the front and back guest houses. The applicant has proposed to provide the required off-street parking for the development off-site on a separate lot located catty-corner. Change of use of the site from 4 two-family residential uses and a vacant office to a 37-room hotel complex with a restaurant, outdoor bar, and pool yard area is a definitive increase in the overall intensity and will certainly have an impact on surroundings that are compatible in nature with the adjacent delimitation of the district, and 2, contains certain open-air design features that do not meet the standards of the zoning ordinance, could lead to adverse impacts upon the neighborhood. However, these impacts could be remedied with provisos. The staff has recommended several provisos that will mitigate impacts and provide for the overall health, safety, and economic vitality of the St. Claude Avenue corridor. In addition, proper management of the hotel should ensure that it does not become a nuisance to adjacent properties. Overall, if the provisos if implemented will make the development consistent with both the HMC2 district intent and purpose to promote visitor and resident-oriented businesses, as well as the site design standards of the EC Enhancement Corridor Design Overlay District. The provisos, 1 is a relocation of the proposed outdoor bar and lounge area from the rear of the site to the front within an enclosed structure. 2nd is limit amplified sound and limits to special event egress to St.
Thank you so much. Individuals, which would give you toward Ben Jacobs.
Thank Justin Schmidt, where we were asking for a deferral for Martin Luther King Day, and then the early closure on Tuesday, followed by 3 days of ice and delayed time in which staff could look at this, and in all deference to the staff who does a great job on these reports, I just don't think they had enough time to look at this very detailed and complicated application with a number of properties. We found several, as I said, we asked for the deferral. If you're so granted, I can stop my spiel, and I know we have to have public comment, still has to speak.
More deferral, or?
Yes, we have asked for a deferral in writing on the 29th, and I'm asking for it again now. And when I'm and I'm asking for it again now. And when I'm should the commission decide to go ahead and defer, let us know that. We won't make the presentation today. Let the public make their comments, and then we'll come back on the 27th.
Document, so I'm more than sure that at least one of them will want to speak, so you can go ahead with your presentation.
No, that's what I'm saying, is we acknowledge that there's going to be opposition and they're going to speak. What I'm saying is instead of
So if they speak, unless a commissioner brings forth a motion for deferral and they could for denial or approval, I would say that use your time wisely to give your presentation now.
Okay. So we have reviewed the staff report and would like to comment on the following. The owners have reviewed the provisos and with respect and are okay with the provisos with the exception and qualifications of the following. Proviso number 5, the redesign and to remove the bar and seating area from the outdoor into the indoor property. Not only is that unprecedented, I mean, we think that's the section 2.1.4B2 bar. There is not any designation on the site plan that says.
Please respect the speaker and give him his time to speak. Thank you.
So it appears to us that it's a little bit problematic in that even when we had a site visit and offered to put more detailed plans in, staffers suggested that it wasn't necessary because there was going to be substantial provisions or revisions or requested revisions that would need to be would also need to be incorporated.
that goes hand in hand with Proviso 16, which the owners are the relocation of the required off-street parking that we proposed in zoning docket 2218 onto the site. Again, this that proviso does not meet the definition of proviso. Instead, it's a complete redesign of the site plan. What's more problematic is that it appears to be killing two birds with one stone without a whole lot of thought. I think the staff feels that the parking lot across the street is problematic, and also the size of the use of the hotel is problematic. So the answer was to put the parking in the middle of this green space, again, contrary to, I guess, our water management, and be contrary to the general tenets of the zoning district. The relocation of the site to where the staff would suggest it be would require the one report as being part of a cigar the truck yard. It was the truck yard, or truck farm, excuse me. It was the truck. There was certainly commercial activities on this property. For the surface level parking lot that's currently situated between 3000 and 3014 St. Claude, which would be infill and again bring a building of the historic structure at 3014 St. Claude, which the HDLC staff has already indicated to us is not an option. So we're asking, for the sake of parking, when parking could be across the street, to demolish those, and we just don't feel concern of parking across the street. I guess the driveway, this would, by reciting this property as 3020 St. Claude and 3014 St. Claude, is not a shared driveway. That driveway distance between board to board of the aisle, much less a double drive aisle. So you would actually have cars coming and going in the same pedestrian ingress and egress for the hotel, which is not only contrary to a safe means of egress, pedestrian egress in and out, and separate and apart from a driveway, but is against the ADA code with respect to handicap accessibility. So we understand the staff was trying to come up with some options where we could eliminate that, which brings us to one of the other reasons why the deferral was questioned. There was still a deferral as late as Wednesday of last week when we were dealing with, or the week before when we were dealing with conditional use because the accessory parking was within 300 feet and there was a zoning interpretation. 2 days later, on the Friday before the 29th cutoff date, we then learned that we did, and so we rescinded the conditional use, and then we had to introduce the conditional use for the 2218. There's just a lot of questions that remain open and that were actually raised in the staff report, and we'd just like the opportunity, with respect to the zoning change, as the truck farm and a cigar rolling business, and the documents in the phase one certainly ferret that out. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them.
So, Mr. Smith, I guess in your request, you're asking for a deferral to when?
The 27th, I think, is the next scheduled meeting, which would be fine.
Okay. And I guess I'll ask now, how has your I guess, the communication with the neighbors and the neighborhood been going thus far?
We had an initial neighborhood participation meeting in August when we were just dealing with a zoning change. What we heard loud and clear at that meeting was we don't want a zoning change unless we know what is.
Audience members, please have a seat. It's okay.
Unless we know what would be there ultimately, and so we had a subsequent MPP meeting where we then presented the full hotel project with the zoning change and the conditional use for the surface level parking lot across the street. I will add to that the zoning component of it is really to correct, as the staff correctly says in the report, to correct a mislabeling of this zone. There's not a separate lot of record in the middle of this property. It is the same lot, those 3 lots that are being rezoned. It's just the rear portion. Based on my 20 years of experience, I think it happened clearly by looking at the aerials, where the sheds were on there. One would reasonably believe at 30,000 feet in elevation that a shed, an accessory structure, would be built on the property line, and so that's exactly where line down for the St. Claude properties, and that's how those fronting on St. Claude were the HMC2, where everything behind that shed ended up being RM3, so or HMR3. So that was acknowledged by the City Planning Commission staff and by this commission and by the council already in the Flume amendment that took place last summer and last year when they changed the master plan for the land use to be consistent with what the St. Claude frontage was consistent. So now this is the companion legislation for that Flume amendment that was done.
The commissioners from Mrs. Smith. If not, thank you, Mrs. Smith. In an effort to be effective and efficient, I have about 45 to 60 cards in my hand. So opponents, you have a period of 15 minutes to speak. However, 2 minutes per speaker max unless someone else cedes. So I would ask that those who have prepared statements would necessarily come speaker time to speak, but it will only be a max of 15 minutes. And as you come to the mic, please speak directly into the middle mic and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Michael. I live on Felicity Street. This proposed zoning change and the conditional use permit were applied for by developers who are seeking to construct a planned 41,000 square foot hotel development on St. Claude Avenue. I'm a former resident of 3030 St. Claude Avenue and was pushed out of my home to make way for this development. So I asked the CPC to please reject all of these proposals. I can speak from my own experience that the Sunyard development has already displaced working people that were living on this block and will continue this displacement if it is constructed. The Sunyard will cause a ripple effect that will raise surrounding rents and property taxes. It has taken 8 units that have been used for, despite what this man said, they have been used for long-term housing, residential housing for years in an area with a very limited housing stock. This development would continue the process of gentrification that is pushing working New Orleanians out of our neighborhoods. The Sunyard development is a project that provides few, if any, benefits to area residents. It is a project that will deepen the housing crisis in this city. I call on anyone who supports the Sunyard Hotel development to look us in the eye and be honest. You want money. You don't care about the working New Orleanians who will be significantly affected, even pushed from our homes by developments like this. So we are proud residents of New Orleans who want our city to grow and thrive. We do not oppose development, but we want development that puts city residents and our communities first. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask that you know all applause. The clock is running. The longer you clap, the speakers do not speak. Thank you.
Mark Gonzalez, 3106 South Bean Street. I'm a member and board member of Neighbors First for Bywater. Our organization actually sent you a letter asking for a deferral. I'm here because there wasn't another card for deferrals, and I'm here to suggest again that this matter needs to be deferred, and let me give you a couple reasons why. First of all, our neighborhood organization, Neighbors First for Bywater, has dedicated its next meeting to deal with this issue. I think you would want to hear from one of the two major Bywater neighborhood organizations from what their neighbors are saying about this project before you make a decision on it. The other neighborhood organization, the BNA, actually does not have and never has had a meeting on this issue. Their board makes a decision, so you really should take that into account, that what you're hearing from the BNA is just the board members, whereas Neighbors First for Bywater wants to give you the input of its neighbors after a well-publicized meeting on this. We asked for a deferral. This project has been a moving target from day one. Thank you.
What is the date scheduled for their meeting?
It is the first Wednesday in March.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, Megan Kiefer. I reside at 3019 North Rampart. So my backyard directly abuts this proposed development. And I don't think anyone on this commission is a fool. I think you've looked at the plans, and if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, this is an outdoor hotel mega entertainment complex with plans to hold weddings, live music, special events, and has an outdoor party pool. I don't think anyone here would want to live next to that, and I think your staff recognize that. So that's community benefit, and I submit to this commission there is absolute our residential spaces and our residential neighborhoods, and don't go buying property and come asking us to change the zoning. And why is that? Because our neighborhoods are under siege by developments like this. This opposition here is not just because of a hotel, it's because our culture is under attack. Commission, and it's because of development of a historic district. We need to stop pretending that keeping a porch preserved for sitting is the same as a porch that is sat on. And history is made through our people. Cannot make our history. We need to reward these individuals on whose backs our history is made and whose backs our historic neighborhoods are built, or else we shall find ourselves without a future history to preserve. And to the staffers, we thank you for your report. We found it to be very comprehensive. Thank you.
At this time, we have 11 minutes left. I'll ask that each speaker be brief and look behind you. There are other people waiting.
Hello, my name is Courtney Keller. I lived at the Truck Farm for 8 great years. My husband and I ran the Backyard Music Festival Chaz Fest for 11. We still reside in Bywater at 615 Gallier Street. We do not trust the Sun Yard. From the beginning, they have pretended to involve the community in their plans. They have to. It's mandated under Article 4 of the CZO, but they are not doing it properly. Over and over, rather than responding in group forums to publicly ask questions, the Sun Yard has targeted individuals, bombarding us with contradictory text, offering comprehensive replies to our concerns, let alone a stable business model for us to critique. Some examples. The Sun Yard attempted to purchase all the residential properties surrounding the proposed hotel complex site, then told us the Sun Yard will be neighborhood friendly and invited our children to come swim in their pool. Funny, because there will be no more neighborhood kids when property taxes spike even higher because of the zoning change. Their communication is personally invasive and defensive. Immediately after the last HGLC meeting, some of us were personally contacted by Liz Solms, who corrected our statements via Jamaica based on notes from her architect. They are unrealistic. To quote, "We are not a hostel meant for partiers, and there will be no live music except maybe once in a while, and absolutely daytime only." They have told once in a while mean? Why have they said at the NPP that they would hold one wedding per weekend? Can they background check people for a track record of partying? I mean, will there be a curfew at this hotel? It's crazy. They claim to be historical preservationists, and then why have they left the existing properties abandoned for the last 8 months since it's been purchased? Pipes that burst during the freeze were allowed to spew into the street for 2 days. Lastly, in response to one neighbor's request for a meeting to discuss concerns, they quaintly offered to schedule that meeting for tomorrow, the day after our hearing today. It's unacceptable.
9 minutes left. I ask each speaker be respectful to the speaker behind you. Hold applause. The time is running.
Good evening, Council. I am Francis Goff Osborne. I'm a native Orleanian, born and raised in the Lower Ninth Ward. However, I've lived in the Bywater area since 1988. The proposed Sunyard Hotel is appalling to me and my neighbors because it will ruin the quality of life in our neighborhood. Why is this proposal being allowed by the City Council? Perhaps the answer lies in the fact that New Orleans is a tale of two cities. After the destruction of Hurricane Katrina in 2005, once the waters receded, everyone knew whether they were foreign entities to come and destroy this historic section of the city. I love the architecture of the houses along the river, so do the tourists. I, along with my husband, have worked hard to maintain our home in the Bywater. At our age, quality of life and living is important. To have the tranquility of our neighborhood imposed upon by the Philadelphia-based real estate company is heartbreaking to me and my neighbors.
Seven minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Eve Abrams. I lived at this property at 3030 St. Claude for 5 years, my husband for 9 years, and we loved the neighborhood so much we bought a home directly around the corner at 1028 Montague Street. I can see St. Claude Avenue from my front door. As an immediate neighbor, I went to the NPP meeting the previous owners had about the split zoning of this property, yet I wasn't told of any hearings regarding its future land use. None. I got no notification. Why weren't the master mixed-use historic core? This property has split zoning because this property reaches deeply into the core to contradict their good neighbor 4-lane state highway that their property fronts. Our neighborhoods hold our culture. Tourists come to New Orleans because of that culture, but the residents who perpetuate that culture need our government. Why are we contemplating jettisoning this core residential neighborhood? Because some oligarch has a dream of running a hotel, we cannot continuously cannibalize ourselves.
My name is Carol.
Use and extends deeply into the neighborhood through long key lots. The size of the land is important because the outdoors disrupting the sleep of adjacent neighbors who have to get up and go to work or school. A sound engineer should be involved throughout the entire project as it undergoes the changes in design and build phases, starting with a published sound study for peer review. The study should include occupancy maximums of both the outdoor and indoor spaces, placement and intensity of all outdoor loudspeakers, the sound generated by late night activity in the parking lot. It should include the real-world acoustical performance data that confirms compliance to the specifications of the sound study prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. The owners should install ordinance breaches surrounding the entire property line rather than having the neighbors ask the health department, which closes at 5 p.m., or the police, who have priorities. In March 2016, the CPC Commission unanimously denied a conditional use request for a similar Bywater project because it was asking residents
and I can't afford to live in the neighborhood, and I don't see that this project is going to help in any way. We've taken a really is approved.
North Rampart. I abut the property on the back. I also live adjacent to the Bark Market. The Bark Market, the rezoning of the Wilt's Gym, that gave me a little high school education in rezoning and the whole process. I've got a PhD now through this. What they're looking to do, I think we're missing the forest for the Sun Yard here. We're talking about rezoning a piece of land that's going to stay with that land forever, deeply affecting all of the surrounding neighbors. We can't forget about the people who live around here. And if you are going to give them the opportunity to defer your vote, then you should make them think of how they can use the property at the back that is zoned HMR3, because they can use it as a B&B, ancillary. That's a permitted use. They want to do a hotel, B&B. They could totally do something like that. It's also good for agriculture, cultural center, educational centers, so many other things. And I really, I'm going to give somebody else the time. I could go on, and I really need to, but I'm getting emotional, so I'm going to back off.
A minute and 30 seconds left.
All right, we're a doubles act. My name is David Ralston, otherwise known as Quintron. I live at 3052 St. Claude Avenue, down the street from the proposed project. I've lived there most of my life and devoted my life to fostering the community in Bywater. And my main opposition is to the scale of this project, and I appreciate your provisos that possibly move the parking lot onto the property and scale down the hotel.
Hi, my name is Panacea Theriak, and I also live at 3052 St. Claude Avenue, and I've lived there for over 20 years. And I've never bothered to oppose anything, but this one is too big. It's just not the right thing for this neighborhood. And I also should point out they've never run a hotel or a bar or a restaurant. So this could be a big failure. Why don't we wait and see how one of the other hotel developments, maybe the one by the Joint or the one in the hotel, why don't we wait and see how those do, see how those work out, and then we decide on this. We waited 12 years for a grocery store in our neighborhood. We can wait longer. And this homes. And
That concludes the time for the opposition.
thank you.
Please have a seat, sir. No, not today. No, no, no. Go back to your seat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. No talking. So now, Mr. Smith, you have time for rebuttal. But right before Mr. Smith comes back up, I'd like to make an announcement. Nora was so gracious to accommodate us because of the changes that are taking place in the city council chambers. That we have to leave this building because there's a basketball game scheduled at 5:30. So if you're here for document matter 10, 11, 12, or 13, but especially 12 and 13, we may not get to you today. And staff will be in contact with you about rescheduling. But if you're here for those docket matters that's on the docket, we may not, we had to change venues. Mr. Smith, you have time for rebuttal. You have 6 minutes.
I just wanted to go through a couple of items that were mentioned by the opposition. First of all, the site, 41,000 square feet, is not the size of this development. The entire site is 39,000 and some change. The development, the hotel itself, is only 21,000 square feet. So it's not a 40,000 square foot hotel. No one was displaced through this process. The residential process, the leases were just not renewed. They were not renewed by the previous owners of the property. These weren't dealing with the owners that own it now. This is not an stage at some point. That's just to throw you off. The attempt to purchase all properties is simply untrue. On Rampart Street for their own residents. They are going to live there when they are here in New Orleans, which will be a good part of time, especially
Audience, respect the speaker. You had your opportunity to speak. He did not interrupt you. You will not interrupt him. Thank you.
From day one, the owners have been working with an acoustical specialist and engineer, Dave Woolworth. He's one that is familiar, that the city's familiar with. He's one that worked on a lot of the sound issues with the French Quarter and actually drafted the sound report that the city council commissioned a few years ago. The garbage is one issue that we're getting conflicting. That's one of the things we wanted to flesh out in the deferral period. We're getting contrary statements from different departments in the city, and I understand that different disciplines have different reasons and rationale, but the garbage would be limited to garbage trucks and the type of receptacles that are already in the neighborhood. So we basically have come up with a scheme where all major truck deliveries would be via St. Claude, but that there would be trash wheeled out on a basis, you know, from behind the fence to the actual trucks using the traditional neighborhood. With respect to, you know, we're getting contradictory messages as well as whether make it an Airbnb, but then we heard don't make it an Airbnb. There's a part, this is on a major thoroughfare with an overlay that is supposed to be very pedestrian in nature. In closing, I did want to bring you, I suggested why the parking on the site and the reconfiguration didn't work, and I think it's important that you see this. This hashed portion right here represents the portion of this structure here that would actually have to be demolished. A historic. They were also asking to demolish the shed, the historic shed back here. Those are two things. Just a no-go. So, in other words, and then this entire building right here, given that opportunity, we thank you.
Can we see that, sir? We were showing it to you, but the audience didn't get to see it.
We'll get to that. Thank you. So Mr. Smith, we had a lengthy, I guess, presentation from yourself and also hearing from the opposition. One of the speakers stated that the two neighborhood associations necessarily haven't met to necessarily discuss the proposal. With that being said, there were plenty of speakers who spoke in opposition, and I think they've come to their conclusion. So that the meeting will be held, I think they've come to their conclusion. So that the meeting will be held in the beginning of March. So are you open to necessarily having deferral until March 13th so then that you can either hear from them, meet with talking about the trash, you can work those things out, and also necessarily about your proposal?
I'm on February 27th, but I think March 13th would be fine as well.
To the March 13th meeting of the City Planning Commission.
It's been moved by Commissioner Green for a deferral to March 13th. In reference to the motion. If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of the deferral to March 13th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please state for the record that Commissioner Steig is in opposition. However, we have 5 votes, so it will be deferred until March 13th.
I do want to state for the members of the public who are here that I greatly appreciate the fact that you all have come out and if the applicant and both the members of the public expressed some concerns relative to dates that we should, if it's all allowable, defer. So that is the request that I've made based on the mutual determination that is something that needs to be addressed at a future date.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Green. And I'll also add to that, Mrs. Smith, I would ask that you at least maybe meet with those neighbors that the property would affect and butt up against, and also in person. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we will, and actually we've been working with the neighborhood.
Zoning docket 02218. And those people who wanted to speak that were unable to speak, please stand up. Here, we'll take your name to make sure that we can include some type of. I'll just ask that you walk around the actual podium and form your line at the table.
Since 18 is the same project, can we just consider that deferred, or can I make a motion to be deferred as well? What? Yeah, I hope not to preempt the process, but we do want to try to get this other one in. Since clearly you can't do one without the other, let me make a motion that we do the same deferral.
I will ask council if that is acceptable. He did not read the report yet. So can you give us a brief report?
Zoning docket 22, Historic Marigny Treme Bywater Commercial District, an AC3 Arts and Culture District Overlay District, and an EC Enhancement Corridor Design Overlay District. The applicant is proposing to develop parking spaces, 12 of which are required and 8 of which are not required for the proposed 37-room hotel. The use of the site of the hotel's parking lot is allowable as a permitted use if all the parking spaces that are provided are required by the comprehensive zoning ordinance. However, in this case, the parking lot is to provide several more parking spaces than is required by the CZO, and the conditional use is required. The subject site is located within the HMC2 Commercial District, the EC Enhancement Future Land Use Map is Historic Mixed Use Core. It's a dense development pattern and a move towards an urban walkable district that provides a variety of destinations. Along a major arterial street would cause the parking lot to negatively impact the historic character of the corridor while undercutting the objectives of the comprehensive zoning ordinance and the master plan's future land use designation. Therefore, the staff recommends denial of zoning docket 2218.
Thank you. And I'll actually ask council. Since we read the report now, and necessarily since those two docket matters are connected, Commissioner Isaacson's question was in reference to is it appropriate to defer this matter as well?
Yes, it is appropriate to make a motion to defer, however state law does require to give reasonable public comment before any action, so public comment has to be had.
So Mrs. Smith, are you okay with moving for a deferral with this as well?
Actually, Commissioner, I don't want to be contrary, but that's why I'd asked to do it before. If we open the can, I think we have to complete the process.
Absolutely. I just want you.
Zoning docket 2218 is problematic for several reasons that we suggested first, and then this is why we asked for the deferral.
Mr. Smith, may I ask you, are you okay with a deferral to March 13th?
Went forward with 21, it's incumbent upon us to go ahead and put a record on 22.
Okay, so you're opposed of a deferral for this one?
That's correct.
Okay.
I mean, we will defer a decision, but if we're going to have,
you have to agree that you want a deferral. I want you to state that you want a deferral as the applicant, and then I'm going to ask the opposition if they are okay with deferring because the last document was deferred, And then if they're okay with that, with no one speaking, then we'll move forward with a deferral, possibly a deferral motion coming from one of the commissioners.
We would like a deferral, but if there's going to be comment on the other side, we just want to.
Absolutely, I would
No,
give.
we agree, excuse me, I misunderstood you. We certainly agree that it should be deferred.
It's not a trick question. So you're okay with deferral to March 13th?
We are at deferral of this entire docket, so long as the opposition.
Absolutely, okay. So the applicant has requested a deferral to March 13th. Now, for the last docket matter, those who have spoken, that goes into public record. And if no one speaks, we can defer this docket matter until March 13th. But since you actually showed up, everyone in opposition, you have an opportunity to speak. But since the last docket matter was deferred, as long as no one defers, we can continue to move forward with a possible deferment on this docket matter. Like I said, we're taking names right now to make sure that we get your contact information so that we can get something from you to be a part of the record. So if no one wants to speak in opposition throughout our entire docket by 5:30.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
If the opposition speaks.
If you speak, you won't be deferred.
Right.
Because then we have to hear. So
I'd like to second the motion for deferral with emphasis to the general.
Hold on, Commissioner Green.
Was it moved?
No, it was not moved. So, Mrs. Smith, the opposition has not spoken. You still want a deferral, correct? That closes the public hearing portion for this docket matter. Commissioners, the applicant has requested a deferral until March 13th. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move for deferral of docket number 02218 to the March 13th meeting of the City Planning Commission.
It's been moved by Commissioner Green. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Hughes. I'll call the question. All in favor of the deferral, please state by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion has been carried for deferral. Zoning docket 02318.
Request by City Council number M17-618 for text amendment to Article 15, Section 15.2.a to make Mardi Gras Den a permitted use in the C2 auto-oriented commercial district, to Article 15, Section 15.2.a to change Mardi Gras Den from a conditional use to a permitted use in the MU2 high-density mixed-use district, and to Article 16, Section 16.2 to make Mardi Gras Den a permitted use in the VIP Business Industrial Park District. The Mardi Gras Den is considered a commercial use and is defined as a warehouse used for the construction, maintenance, repair, and storage of Mardi Gras floats, Mardi Gras district. The reason for the proposed text amendment is to address the perceived overregulation of Mardi Gras dens in the C2, MU2, and VIP district. The C2 and MU2 districts are intended for a wide variety of commercial uses, while the VIP district is intended to provide locations for certain types of businesses and light industrial uses. Mardi Gras dens are passive uses and are not more harmful than other. Allowing them in this district would be appropriate and recommend approval of the proposed text amendment.
Thank you so much. Mr. Barry Kern? Mr. Douglas? Okay.
Douglas Hamill, 1004 4th Street. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the work that you all do. It's quite a day. Thank you to the staff on behalf of the Knights of Battle. We've been a great citizen of the city. We stay inside all year except for 2 days. The day that we open up to show our feet to the world, and the day that
for the opportunity to speak. Mike Sherman, 800 Barone Street. Really proud to be here in support of our culture and support of Mardi Gras. I'm here and you heard from the crew of Babylon. This is to permit that Mobile, despite claiming to be the original home of Mardi Gras, does not permit Mardi Gras dens in.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman. Are there any other speakers here to speak in support?
By council motion for the rescission of an existing ordinance for the property located at Toledano Street and South Claiborne Avenue. The existing ordinance allowed a restaurant that formerly occupied the site. No need for this conditional use ordinance anymore. So this.
Thank you so much. It's been moved by Commissioner Brown to move staff. If not, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Let me state this right before everyone leaves. I want to commend staff for necessarily making all the necessary arrangements to make sure that we can actually hold this meeting today, since we got booted out of City Hall.
Yes.
Moving on, zoning docket 02618.
So these next two items, 2518 and 2618, were incorrectly included on the agenda. They're not complete applications, and so there's no need for action on them.
Thank you so much for that. So moving on to considerations, ratifications of actions related to certified subdivisions.
There are no subdivisions to certify at this time.
In light of that, I move for adoption of the minutes of the January 23rd meeting.
It's been moved for approval of the minutes by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Isaacson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion is carried.
And I want to commend the chairman for amazingly allowing the Nord basketball to get in on time. I thought we were here for all night.
All right, so any committee reports or announcements?
Motion to adjourn.
And what about leaving papers here like this? Yeah. I mean,
You're not going to take them home and read them all?
I think we got them read.
Wait, hold on. Is there a second? It's been moved for adjournment by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Steve. All in favor?